Chapter 1148. Although it only had 500 to 600 years of cultivation, it couldn't be underestimated. Normal 1,000-year soul beasts might not even be its match. Wang Feng smiled as he stroked the diamond dragonhawk's head. The diamond dragonhawk had been reborn as a soul beast. Fortunately, they weren't deeply infected. Otherwise, they might not have been able to recover. Xiao Xiao excitedly ran in front of Wang Feng, wanting to touch the diamond dragon eagle, but was rejected by the diamond dragon eagle. It turned its head away and didn't even look at her. Teacher. Xiao Xiao's face turned bitter. It doesn't seem to accept me. Nonsense, it doesn't even know you. Why would it accept you? Wang Feng stared at Xiao Xiao speechlessly. Play a song. Use what you're best at to attract its attention. Xiao Xiao's eyes lit up again. She summoned her martial soul, the 9 phoenix worshipping flute, and played a melodious song. She infused her emotions into the song and used her voice to convey her inner emotions. Music was a medium for spiritual communication across species. The diamond dragonhawk was obviously attracted by the flute song, which was why its gaze fell on Xiao Xiao. It looked at her reluctantly. Go. Wang Feng touched the diamond dragonhawk's head. The diamond dragonhawk screeched and flew towards Xiao Xiao. Ma Xiaotao, who was watching from the side, was a little nervous. This soul beast was very aggressive. If she didn't fight, Xiao Xiao would be in danger. Fortunately, her worries were unnecessary. The diamond dragonhawk flew to Xiao Xiao's feet and flapped its wings a few times. It seemed to enjoy Xiao Xiao's song. Wang Feng nodded slightly when he saw this. Teacher, I love you so much. Thank you. Xiao Xiao put away her jade flute and gently stroked the diamond dragonhawk's head. She had concealed her thoughts and immediately looked at Wang Feng with sparkling eyes. Wang Feng waved his hand. Love it more than you love me. Nurture it well. Xiao Xiao giggled and nodded. Yu Hao, this jade shell crystal monster is a rare spiritual type soul beast. At the same time, it has an extremely strong defense. Wang Feng pointed to the jade shell crystal monster and said, Treat it as the first soul beast that I found for you. You'll have to find more in the future. You can communicate with it using your spiritual power. This soul beast was very gentle. Plus, you're a spirit type, so it'll be easy for them to accept you. It was a spiritual type soul beast, and it had extremely strong defenses. This was a rather perfect combination. Most spiritual type soul beasts had weak defenses. Like the silver-patterned silkworm, even the million-year-old sweet dream iceworm was like this. You're really lucky, kid. Boss was able to find you such a rare spiritual type soul beast. This jade shell essence crystal monster can be considered a rare spiritual type soul beast with an ancient bloodline. In terms of value, it's much more valuable than the amethyst rhinoceros and the diamond dragonhawk. After hearing this, Yu Hao walked over excitedly. Yu Hao closed his eyes and communicated with the crystal monster for a moment. The crystal monster floated to his side and let out a friendly cry. In the end, Wang Dong couldn't help but feel a little anxious when he saw that both of them had soul-bound beasts while she didn't. Teacher, what about me? Wang Dong couldn't help but ask as he walked out. No. I haven't found anyone suitable for you, Wang Feng said with narrowed eyes. Wang Dong was immediately disappointed. Teacher, you're biased. Seeing this, Yu Hao hesitated for a moment before saying, Wang Dong, I already have one. Do you want? He wanted to ask if he should give the crystal monster to Wang Dong first. After all, he already had a silver-patterned silkworm. Before he could finish speaking, Wang Feng interrupted him. Shut up. Yu Hao was stunned as he saw Wang Feng looking at him with a stern expression. I knew you'd do this, Wang Feng said sternly. Do you think a soul-bound beast is an object? That you can give it to someone else just because you want to? Let's not talk about whether the talisman is compatible. Even if you agree, do you know that you'll never be able to sign a life contract with this soul-bound beast again if you really say that? After hearing this, Hu Hao immediately lowered his head in shame. Teacher, I was wrong. It's good that you know you were wrong. Wang Feng said in a low voice, remember, you can let your soul-bound beast help anyone, but you can't give the soul-bound beast that's about to become yours to anyone else. Furthermore, you just communicated with it mentally. Always remember that a soul-bound beast isn't an object. If you've just discovered this crystal monster and haven't decided to make it your soul-bound beast, you can give it to someone else. However, you've already communicated with it and have decided to make it your soul-bound beast. You can't have any thoughts of giving it away. Even if you do, the first thing you have to do is ask for its opinion. You can only say something like that if it agrees. You can't just make decisions for it. Remember, you're partners, not superior and subordinate. You're also not master and servant. Hu Hao was stunned by Wang Feng's words. The rest of the people were also stunned. Wang Feng shook his head. Although they understood the life contract, they still subconsciously treated themselves as the master. This concept originated from the human nature of the Douluo continent after tens of thousands of years. It wasn't Hu Hao's fault. Wang Feng told them about this concept because he wanted them to abandon their natural sense of superiority. Otherwise, they would reach a bottleneck sooner or later and clash with their soul-bound master. When that happened, it was possible that their life contract would backfire. They would never be able to reach the most tacit understanding with their soul-bound beast. Soul-bound master, soul-bound beast, Hu Hao and the others gained another level of understanding towards this profession. Wang Dong, this is your soul beast. Finally, Wang Feng took out the flaming sunflower. This type of soul beast was relatively precious, and didn't need to grow inside the diagram. Could absorb heaven and earth yuan qi, and it was just easier to absorb it in the soil. It could also absorb all kinds of nutrients in the earth to grow better. However, the appearance of this beautiful flower still gave Wang Dong a huge shock. This was because she immediately fell in love with this flower. It was about the size of 3 palms, and had a pure white stamen in the middle of its petals. Plant-type martial souls are very compatible with your butterfly goddess. As long as you release your martial soul and make simple contact with it, it won't reject you. Next, you'll have to nurture your relationship with it, Wang Feng instructed. Hearing this, Wang Dong hurriedly released his radiant butterfly goddess. He walked in front of Wang Feng and took the flower from his hands. Just as Wang Feng had said, plant-type martial souls were very compatible with the radiant butterfly goddess, especially flower-type martial souls. The flaming sunflower didn't struggle as it was held in Wang Dong's hands. Thank you, teacher, Wang Dong said sincerely. She had never admired or worshipped this mysterious Wang Feng as much as she did now. In the future, you'll have to depend on yourselves. Wang Feng nodded. In the future, their soul-bound beasts would have to depend on themselves. Jiang Nanan couldn't help but feel envious as she watched from the side. Author's note: it's a bit late. End of chapter. Chapter 1149. Jiang Nanan was very interested in soul-carving beasts after the past few days. However, she knew that it wasn't easy to become a soul carver. She was a little envious when she saw how Teacher Feng was able to bring so many rare soul beasts to his students so easily. Everyone looked at their new soul beasts with excitement in their eyes. They seemed to be talking to each other. Wang Feng turned his gaze and suddenly saw the golden head owl. Did you bully it, Long Xie? Wang Feng frowned. The golden owl didn't seem to be hurt, but its eyes were cold. It was especially calm when it looked at Long Xie. It was the calm before the storm. I didn't. Long Xie let out a yelp of surprise as he flew over. How could I possibly bully a 100-year soul beast? He asked with a confused look on his face. Boss, it doesn't seem to be hurt at all. If I bullied it, would it still be as good as new with its small body? Screech! The golden owl seemed to hear something. It screeched at Long Xie. Look, it's getting excited. Long Xie coughed a few times. Jiang Nanan muttered to herself. She didn't want to snitch on Long Xie. After all, it was Long Xie's business. Bullshit. Do you think your boss is a pushover? Wang Feng angrily slapped Long Xie. You think I can't see it? As he spoke, Wang Feng walked over and patted the golden owl. It looked a lot bigger than before. It had become a lot stronger over the past 3 days. Long Xie must have bullied it, and then he treated it like it was before. That was how the golden owl had improved so quickly. The process must have been very tragic. The golden head owl did not whine pitifully at Wang Feng. It seemed that it had a tough personality. He glared at Long Xie as if he wanted to eat him alive. What are you looking at? Long Xie laughed disdainfully. I admit that I bullied it. Boss, look. Didn't its cultivation increase? Furthermore, it's too tough. If it doesn't get lucky, it won't be able to survive for long in the soul beast forest. If it were any other powerful soul beast, it would have swallowed it whole. Wang Feng glared at Long Xie. Long Xie immediately shut up and drew circles on the ground with his claws. Jiang Nanan covered her mouth and chuckled. She felt that the relationship between the soul contract master and the soul contract beast was really interesting. Little fellow, do you want to come with me? Wang Feng looked at the golden-headed cat-eagle and patted it. This little thing had some fate with him. Even though its bloodline was ordinary, its personality wasn't bad. With a bit of nurturing, it would definitely become a great talent in the future. If that didn't work, he could find a master for it. Oh, that's good. Long Xie chuckled. If this little eagle dared to leave with its master, he would have plenty of opportunities to bully this little thing in the future. He was even a little addicted to it. Unexpectedly, the golden head owl shook its head. It looked at Wang Feng and let out a soft cry before flying away. Before leaving, he even turned around to look at Wang Feng and Jiang Nanan. Jiang Nanan hurriedly waved at the golden head owl and said loudly, "Goodbye, little owl. I will visit you often in the future." Their relationship wasn't bad. Wang Feng laughed. Actually, soul contract masters had to choose soul beasts that were suitable for them. But in fact, if they were fated to be together, they would have the highest priority. Wang Feng couldn't predict how strong the soul contract master and his soul contract beast would become in the future. This was because his smurf hadn't reached rank 100 yet. But there was one flaw that Wang Feng could exploit. Even though the bloodline of a soul beast determined the upper limit of a soul beast, the soul contract beast would definitely become stronger as it grew with its master. Changes would occur, and the bond between them would become deeper. When that happened, there might be other changes. Jiang Nanan and this golden head owl weren't very compatible, but if they were fated to be together, the golden head owl wouldn't be weak if it became Jiang Nanan's soul contract beast. The bond between different life forms would cause different life forms to change. Let's go back first. Zhang Lishuan walked over from behind and gave Wang Feng a deep look. All of you go back first. Wang Feng said casually, I will patrol the forest again to see if there are other evil soul beasts. Zhang Lishuan, protect them well. I will come back later. He wanted to see if there were any more eggs of those evil soul beasts nearby. If there were, he would deal with them directly. He didn't want to leave any problems behind. Zhang Lishuan nodded and led everyone back to Shrek Academy. The evil soul beasts in the purple maple forest had been dealt with for now, but Zhang Lishuan wasn't sure if there were other powerful evil soul beasts in other parts of the forest. They walked very quickly. In less than a day, they weren't far from Shrek City. After entering the city, if you can't keep your soul beasts, you have to tie them up for now. Zhang Lishuan instructed the few of them. Otherwise, the appearance of soul beasts in the city will cause chaos. Even though the academy does rear some soul beasts, they aren't rare or powerful. They are only used to introduce soul beasts to the students and to train them in battle. They aren't wild, and are very different from the soul beasts in the forest outside. The few of them nodded. As they hadn't reached rank 30 yet, They couldn't absorb the soul rings of their soul beasts, and couldn't absorb them into their soul domains. They could only keep them by their side. Fortunately, these soul beasts weren't very big, as they only had a few hundred years of cultivation. The only big one was the amethyst rhino. Zhang Lishuan and the others left the purple maple soul beast forest. Wang Feng brought Lin Lord Bingmu along and started to search. Lin Lord Bingmu was born from an eggshell, and his cultivation was only around 5,500 years. It wasn't hard to imagine how much energy Lin Lord Bingmu had absorbed from the eggshell. Most of them had already formed a body. The origin energy of heaven and earth in this era is much denser than before, Lin Lord Bingmu sighed. Many powerful soul beasts must have been born over the past few thousand years, right? Such dense origin energy of heaven and earth means that 1 year of cultivation is equivalent to 10 years of cultivation for soul beasts. Furthermore, this level of origin energy of heaven and earth will give birth to many treasures and large batches of powerful soul beasts. There should be a lot more 100,000-year soul beasts now. 10,000-year soul beasts are also very common. Lin Lord Bingmu was the same as Long Xie. He followed Wang Feng into the Rainbow Mountain to recuperate and recover his soul. He didn't know much about the outside world. However, Lin Lord Bingmu was able to analyze the situation with his senses. This era shouldn't be the most glorious era for Douluo. Wang Feng laughed. From what I know, during the Third World War, there were 3 digits of 100,000-year soul beasts. That was recorded in the official history books of the Federation. In fact, there were even more. There were countless titled Douluo during that era. After the war, their numbers started to decrease. With the appearance of the Soul Core system, their numbers slowly returned to normal, but their fighting strength increased. Lin Lord Bingmu was shocked when he heard this. Especially those 100,000-year soul beasts that were close to 3-digit. This was a little exaggerated. There were at most 3,400,000-year soul beasts on the continent from 10,000 years ago. End of chapter. Chapter 1150. There weren't even 10 of them in the extreme north. At least Lin Lord Bingmu knew that. Lin Lord Bingmu wasn't sure about the other places, but he didn't think there were many of them. The cultivation of soul beasts was slow to begin with, but in just a few thousand years, there had been so many. It was enough to see how exaggerated the energy tides had been. After the life-soul contract was passed down, the cultivation speed of soul beasts won't be much slower than humans. Wang Feng said. There was a price to pay. They had to give up their life force to the Soul Master. They had to raise the potential of the Soul Master. For people like you who are recultivating, your cultivation speed will be even faster. Wang Feng sighed. I'll reach rank 30 in a few months. After I absorb my soul ring, you can enter the soul domain freely. We'll go to the extreme north then. Alright. Lin Lord Bingmu nodded. Lin Lord Bingmu looked like a soul beast as he flew in midair. However, his aura was different from that of a soul beast. There was a kind of awe-inspiring divine might. That black and white body looked extremely cool. Fortunately, Lin Lord Bingmu retracted his aura. Otherwise, his darkness-type aura would cause a huge commotion in the forest. Ordinary 1,000-year soul beasts wouldn't be able to retract their aura even if they had intelligence. It was a pity that Lin Lord Bingmu was a 1,000,000-year soul beast. His experience and abilities were at his fingertip. He was similar to Long Xie in this aspect. As for which one of them was more ancient, it was hard to say. In terms of birth, Long Xie was probably more ancient than all the other soul beasts. He was an evil thought that was born before the dragon god became a godly king. However, it took a long time for this evil thought to develop its own consciousness. By then, Lin Lord Bingmu was already born. That was why Long Xie didn't look as old as Lin Lord Bingmu. Furthermore, Long Xie was rejected by the Dragon Clan. This was because he was expelled by the Dragon God. Back then, He absorbed the evil thought for many years before he developed his own consciousness. He was also very resentful. He didn't like the descendants of the Dragon God and the Dragon Clan. Without Huiyu Hao and the others, Wang Feng, Long Xie, and Qilin Lord Isimu quickly searched the entire Soul Beast forest. When Huiyu Hao and the others walked into Shrek City, they caused quite a commotion. Fortunately, they were all holding their soul beasts in their arms or tying them up with ropes for the time being. When the patrolling guards saw that they were from the Shrek Academy and that Zhang Lishuan was there, they didn't stop them. Shrek City's security guards came from the Shrek Academy's guardians. They were the Shrek Academy's only armed organization. They were officially organized by the Federation and had less than 100 people. They could be considered the only existence among the many academies. Generally, other academies would not have armed organizations, not to mention the recognition of the Federation and the official establishment. This formal establishment meant that in addition to representing the Shrek Academy, it also represented the Federation to a certain extent. In order to ensure that the soul beasts around you aren't aggressive, please allow us to inspect them. Outside the city gates, the guards nodded at Zhang Lishuan in a friendly manner. This was because the Shrek Academy itself had a number of soul beasts, and most of them were captured or picked up by the Academy. However, these soul beasts were chained up with special chains and shackles. However, these soul beasts had no protective measures. What if they hurt someone in the city? Let him inspect them. They are the deputy members of the Shrek Guardians. They are in charge of order and safety in the city. This captain you can be considered your senior. Zhang Lishuan looked at Huiyu Hao and the others. The few of them nodded. This was because they were already familiar with the soul beasts that they had formed soul pacts with. In addition, their intelligence had increased. Other than the Diamond Dragonhawk, which was naturally more arrogant, the rest were more docile. They cooperated with the guards' inspection. Captain, these soul beasts, one of the guards focused on them and whispered, their intelligence is unusually high. How strange, what a pity! They are all from the Academy. These few should be soul charlatans. Senior Zhang, we can't let you in for the time being. The captain muttered to himself for a moment and looked at the few of them. You know about soul charlatans too? Xiao Xiao asked in surprise. Why can't you let us in? Our soul beasts are fine. Of course we know. The captain laughed and said, I am from the inner courtyard of the Academy. We are from the Guardians. Although we are only deputy members, we know everything about the Academy. As for why we can't let you in, it's because your soul beasts are fine. However, it's not the right time for you to return. At this moment the captain sighed and said, You've been gone for 7 to 8 days. I wonder what happened during these 7 to 8 days. Lui, what happened during these few days? Zhang Lishuan furrowed her brow. Eldest senior sister. Captain Lu whispered, Didn't Elder Mu and Elder Xian return a few days ago? However, I heard that the Academy released the soul beasts that were kept in the beast dueling arena or killed them. I don't know the exact reason. Later on, the news of the Soul Renderer Guild being a soul renderer spread out, and several academies heard about it. News about soul charlatans started to spread 4 months ago, when Wang Feng made his first move in the soul dueling area of the Shrek Academy. With the current speed of information transmission, there weren't any high-end communication devices. However, the speed of information was still very fast. Zhang Lishuan wasn't surprised. However, the timing was a little critical. Shrek City is semi-independent. Although the Federation doesn't participate in the governance of the city, they've been paying attention to Shrek City. Captain Lu coughed a few times and said, After that, people from the other academies came looking for us 2 days ago. They believed that soul charlatans were evil, especially during this sensitive period. They demanded that we stop the spread of such evil practices, and that we hand over this student. However, Elder Mu and Elder Xian suppressed this for the time being. However, the Federation's headquarters also received news recently. They even intervened with the Federation's Martial Soul Inspection Department. It's very troublesome. Zhang Lishuan knew that this was a sensitive period. These evil soul beasts' eggs must have caused a lot of trouble. If all of you return to the academy now, the best outcome would be to kill all these soul beasts. The worst outcome would be to be taken away. Captain Lu finished speaking and looked at the few of them. After hearing this, the few of them were confused. However, their expressions changed when they heard the best outcome. I didn't expect the situation to be so troublesome. Zhang Lishuan furrowed her brow. She had only been gone for 6 to 7 days, and so many things had happened. End of chapter. Chapter 1151. Yesterday, Dean Yen came to find me personally. He told you to hide and wait for a while when you returned to Shrek City. Captain Lu looked at them, but he didn't see that teacher. Let's not talk about the academy that's looking for trouble. The people from the Martial Soul Inspection Department are very troublesome. Everyone fell silent. Martial Soul Inspection Department. I've heard teacher mention it before. Hikaitu muttered softly. It's the highest law enforcement organization directly under the Central Martial Soul Palace. The Soul Masters there are at least Soul Douluo. Every single one of them is the strongest among the strong. Their position in the Federation is the kind that everyone is afraid of. No family or school is willing to see these people from the inspection department appear. He knew a little. The rest of them were stunned. They didn't know anything. How can they do this? Wang Dong said angrily. Being a soul contract master isn't an evil path. I think these academies are just looking for trouble, right? I'll go back to. That's right. Xiao Xiao said angrily. Why aren't they letting us return to the academy? Why don't we listen to Senior Brother Li's words? Huoyu Hao thought for a moment. The situation is so complicated. If we return to the academy, we'll cause even more trouble. When that happens, we'll even trouble our teachers. I think this is just a temporary situation. Let's hide for a few days and wait for them to leave. It should be fine after that. You little brat, you can still say this calmly. Ma Xiaotao looked at Huoyu Hao with a strange expression. Yu Hao is right. You've just signed life contracts with these soul beasts. You'll cause a lot of trouble when you return to the academy. You even brought soul beasts with you. Let's not return to the academy for now. Let's wait for a few days. After she finished speaking, Ma Xiaotao looked at Zhang Lishuan. Senior Sister Zhang, what do you think? Zhang Lishuan fell silent. Shrek Academy had always been the #1 academy on the continent. However, there were many other academies that competed with them. In this era, there were many different academies and the competition was very intense. Zhang Lishuan could roughly guess that some academies were trying to make things difficult for the Shrek Academy because they wanted to attack the Shrek Academy's reputation. They wanted to make use of the fact that the eggs of the evil soul beasts had exploded in various soul beast forests to increase the threat of soul beasts. Now that the eggs of the evil soul beasts had appeared in the various large forests, it was very likely that a special battle would break out if the soul beasts were infected. The situation was naturally very tense. Furthermore, this soul renderer needed to form a partnership with a soul beast, so it was easy for him to become a target of criticism. Otherwise, the Martial Soul Inspection Team wouldn't have intervened. But this makes it seem like we have a guilty conscience. Wang Dong curled his lips and said, if we hide, doesn't that mean that we're guilty? In their eyes, it's probably even more unorthodox. Otherwise, why would they hide? Everyone was stunned. What he said seemed to make sense. That's right. Xiao Xiao stretched out her hand. If it were up to me, we should return to the academy and prove that we aren't from some heretical path. We will deal with whatever comes our way. We have a clear conscience. Ma Xiaotao rubbed her chin. What these guys said made sense. They weren't from any heretical path, so why did they have to hide? Furthermore, the academy was definitely on their side. They were students of the Shrek Academy. Why should they be afraid? Furthermore, their soul beasts weren't evil soul beasts. What was there to be afraid of? That makes sense. I support you. Hikaitu laughed. However, his voice was full of energy. Our soul beasts aren't evil soul beasts anyway. Huoyu Hao came to his senses. That's right. What was there to be afraid of? Captain Lu was stunned. He laughed and said, "You're indeed students of the Shrek Academy. You're responsible, you're unyielding, and you're not afraid of anything. Since that's the case, I won't stop you. I'll tell you about this too." As he spoke, Captain Lu stepped aside. Zhang Lishuan thought for a moment, but didn't stop him. These kids had already entered the Shrek Academy, and they had the right to make their own choices. This was their choice. Let's return to the academy then. Zhang Lishuan scanned the few of them. Your teacher might be back later. I hope that you won't embarrass him or the Shrek Academy. Those people from the academy will definitely make things difficult for you when they see you. It's up to you whether you can protect your soul beasts or not. Huoyu Hao and the others were immediately energized when they heard this. They were all very energetic as they walked towards the Shrek Academy in the city with their soul beasts. Shrek Academy. The wind was a little bleak. Although there was no sun today, a cool breeze brushed past his face, giving him a refreshing feeling. In front of the few statues, at this moment there were two groups of people wearing two different outfits. They were staring at the statues. Dean Yen, I didn't expect these statues to be so intact even though I haven't been here for so many years. The person who spoke was an elder with white hair. He wore a long purple robe and his face was old. However, his eyes were clear and spirited, and he was full of energy. His entire body exuded a faint soul power undulation, which was very frightening. Behind this elder, there were a few middle-aged men and young men and women. Although his face was calm, there was a hint of arrogance in his demeanor. Only when he looked at the statues did he have a hint of respect. Of course. Yan Xiaozhe looked at this elder. Speaking of which, our Purple Star College also has a statue of Jiu Yikai. It's a pity that it doesn't have a god like yours. The elder seemed a little regretful. Jiu Yikai used his identity as a student of Purple Star College to win the Continental Elite Soul Master Tournament. It's a story that will never be forgotten. Over the past 10,000 years, no one has been able to do that. The Shrek Academy has produced many talents. Although Jiu Yikai is from the academy, he is still very talented. However, no one has been able to inherit Jiu Yikai's arrogance. I wonder when such a person will appear again? The elder sighed as he spoke. He wasn't being sarcastic. Yan Xiaozhe laughed and said, "That's difficult. Now that the rules of the Elite Soul Master Tournament have been changed, many restrictions have been removed. However, even so, no one has been able to do that. In addition, there are also high-level Soul Masters. They are divided into the Junior and Youth divisions, as well as the Douluo Heavenly King Tournament. It's impossible for one person to win the tournament alone. The rules are different, but they can't be compared. It has nothing to do with the academy." Dean Chen's words are a little biased. After he finished speaking, Yan Xiaozhe laughed. Qian Duo and a few others followed behind him. "Purple Star College, why is this old fellow here?" Qian Duo muttered in his heart. Purple Star College was also one of the top academies in the Federation. In the current Federation, there were many academies in the three political regions. Although Shrek Academy was the #1 academy in the continent, it was still very powerful. End of chapter. Chapter 1152. However, there were still many academies that weren't much worse than Shrek Academy. Purple Star College was one of them. There was also the Federation's East Maple Academy, Heaven Do's Soul Battle Academy, Star Luo Academy, etc. They were all top academies in the Federation. Dean Chern was the Vice Dean of Purple Star College. He was a rank 97 titled Dalu. The two middle-aged men behind him were also titled Doulu. They were Purple Star College's teachers. The students behind them were naturally the elites of Purple Star College. You can't say that. Dinshin laughed. Shrek Academy led the continent's soul masters. It was the first academy to establish a soul tool department back then. Now that they've created a soul charmer, they can surprise us every once in a while. Oh yes, the evil soul beasts are currently in chaos. I heard that a few of your academy's soul charmers went out to search for soul beasts. Are they back now? Yan Xiaozhi didn't react. He didn't reply immediately. On the other hand, an old man under another statue smiled and said, "That's right. Shrek Academy is the oldest and most orthodox Soul Master Academy. We could understand why they introduced and established a Soul Tool department back then. However, this Soul Charmer is completely against us Soul Masters. He even advocated Soul Masters and Soul Beasts to fight together. This is against the cultivation laws of the world of Soul Masters. I didn't expect him to appear in Shrek Academy. It's really shocking." As he spoke, the elder turned around and looked at Flender's statue. "I wonder if the founder will blame you if he knows about this crooked practice." Yan Xiaozhi frowned slightly. The expressions of the teachers and vice deans changed slightly. "Dinshin, you're being too serious." At this moment, Fan Yu walked out and said, "Soul charmers are a more advanced cultivation method. They're more suitable for us humans than soul engineers. They're born from soul masters, but they're more advanced than soul masters. They can even change the cultivation methods of the world. They don't violate the cultivation laws of the world of soul masters. Instead, they combine with soul beasts to unleash greater fighting strength. They can also combine with soul tools. There are many possibilities. They're definitely not crooked." Qian Duoduo glanced at Fan Yu and didn't stop him. He was the vice dean of the Soul Tool department. Logically speaking, he didn't place much importance on soul charmers. Originally, they were waiting for Wang Feng to come back and tell them in detail about soul renters. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen? Who would have thought that Fan Yu, who had been obsessed with soul tools his entire life, would actually be interested in soul contract masters? However, after learning that Fan Yu had handed over his beloved disciple, He Kaitu, to become a soul contract master, Huiyu Hao could more or less understand the situation. What a joke! The elder known as Dean He flicked his sleeve. Humans and soul beasts are natural enemies. How could they combine? Fight together? I've heard that some evil soul masters can control certain soul beasts to fight. Some evil soul masters can even control evil soul beasts. I suspect that this soul charger of yours might be an evil soul master in disguise. It's just that you guys are still in the dark." Upon hearing this, the expressions of Shrek and the others, led by Yan Xiaozhi, abruptly changed. "Dean He Wantian from Beiha Academy, your words are too harsh." A 40-year-old girl beside Yan Xiaozhi said coldly, "Evil soul masters are the Federation's mortal enemies. They're also the mortal enemies of our Shrek guardians. How could we not know about evil soul masters? Do you think that our Shrek Academy is as weak as your Beiha Academy? Only a weakling would say such alarmist nonsense." "Ha ha ha, Kai Mei cut the crap. Whether or not he's an evil soul master, why don't you get your students to come out and take a look?" He Wantian laughed. "This isn't the first time that our Beiha Academy has interacted with your Shrek Academy. I'm sure that Elder Mu and Elder Xian have already told you about the current situation. Whether or not I'm exaggerating, you guys should know. Furthermore, Department Head Tian from the Inspection Department is also watching. Once he comes out, we'll know when we see him. At the same time, we can take advantage of the fact that next year's Continental Elite Soul Master Tournament hasn't started yet to interact with each other." He Wantian's words carried a tinge of gunpowder. Beiha Academy was a subsidiary academy of East Maple Academy, and was one of its academies. As East Maple Academy was an academy established by the Federation, it had integrated many other academies, and its internal structure was rather complicated. Interact? Yan Xiaojia's expression was indifferent. Since we want to interact, our Shrek Academy has plenty of students. Those soul charmers have only just entered the academy, and have yet to receive Shrek Academy's nurturing. It's inconvenient for us to interact with them. Dean Yin, the interaction I'm talking about. Huantian laughed coldly. I'm talking about how we can see if the other party is an evil soul master. I'm not talking about interacting with your academy's students. Yan Xiaojia's gaze turned cold. They're really picking on the weak. Qian Duo sneered and said softly, that child's talent is extremely outstanding. He's considered to be one of the best in the past few decades or even over 100 years. These academies are purposely using the soul charmers and the evil soul beasts as an excuse to suppress these geniuses. What a good plan. I say, the two of you, there's no need to speak so harshly. At this moment, Dean Chen from Purple Star Academy smiled. His expression was slightly amiable. We're all the Federation's top academies, and we're all nurturing outstanding soul masters for the Federation. A simple interaction between soul masters can promote the development of both parties. Whether those soul charmers are evil soul masters or not, and whether they're related to the evil soul beasts, we can just let them come out and take a look. As seniors, we can't do anything to these juniors. Furthermore, even if they've really gone astray, they're still young, and there's still a chance for them to be re-educated. If they're really evil soul masters, we can still guide them back into the path of conquest. After all, the cultivation philosophy of soul charmers is similar to that of evil soul masters. After Dean Chen finished speaking, he smiled at Yan Xiaojia and the others. According to what he said, Elder Mu and Elder Xian from Shrek Academy were injured after returning from the Central Martial Soul Palace. They were definitely recuperating now, and couldn't care about the outside world. Otherwise, they wouldn't have used the evil soul beast's rampage to cause trouble. On one hand, they were extremely suspicious of that soul charmer. On the other hand, they wanted to use this opportunity to suppress Shrek Academy. Yan Xiaojia laughed coldly in his heart. He knew exactly what these two academies were planning. Fortunately, this was Shrek City, and he had already instructed the guards to avoid Zhang Lishuan when she returned. This was to prevent those kids from suffering. However, at this moment, a few furious voices suddenly sounded from afar. How can a soul charmer be similar to an evil soul beast? You stinky old man, you're full of nonsense. You want to find trouble with us, right? We're back. Show us what you've got. End of chapter. Chapter 1153. Wang Dong was the one who'd spoken. Amongst them, she was the only one with a rather lively personality. She definitely couldn't tolerate things that she didn't like. She'd say whatever came to her mind. When she heard these words the moment she returned to the academy, she naturally couldn't tolerate it any longer. When Yan Xiaojia and the others saw Zhang Lishuan bring Hui Yuhao's group back to the academy, they immediately frowned. Didn't they tell the city's guards not to return to the academy after seeing them return? Why did they bring them back directly? At the same time, the soul beasts beside them were completely revealed to Yan Xiaojia and the others. They could feel the auras of the soul beasts even from afar. Old Yan, these soul beasts aren't ordinary. Qian Duo couldn't help but be astonished. It seems like he really gained a lot from bringing these people out. You're still in the mood to care about this? Yan Xiaojia took a few steps forward, wanting to receive these children first. However, Huantian from the Beha Soul Master Academy beat him to it and led the teachers and students behind him forward. Good. You guys are the soul contract masters from the Shrek Academy? Huantian swept his gaze across them, a strange light flickering in his eyes. He didn't become angry because of their disrespect. However, The strange light in his eyes caused Wang Dong and the others to be slightly startled. They felt as if they'd been seen through. His spiritual perception, coupled with his powerful soul power undulations, made it so that Wang Dong and the others couldn't resist. However, after a few seconds, Huantian retracted his spiritual perception. "We're soul contract masters." Huoyu Hao was the first to step forward. He raised his head and puffed out his chest as he said, "Although you're the dean of another academy, you can't speak carelessly." Huantian laughed a few times. After that, he looked at the soul beasts beside them. The more he looked, the more astonished he became. As the dean of a large academy, he naturally recognized the species and rarity of these soul beasts. They're rare amethyst rhinoceroses, diamond dragonhawks, jade shell crystal monsters. The flower around that girl's waist is a special flaming sunflower. They're all extremely rare soul beasts. A middle-aged teacher behind Huantian whispered. After the flaming sunflower and Wang Dong had signed a contract, this extremely beautiful plant-type soul beast had coiled itself around Wang Dong's waist. In Huoyu Hao's words, a boy with a flower tied to his waist was as ugly as it could get. However, he was scolded by Wang Dong for not knowing how to appreciate it. Evil soul beasts are wreaking havoc in the soul beast forest. Who knows if these soul beasts will turn into evil soul beasts? A student around 16 or 17 years old walked out from the side of this middle-aged teacher with an arrogant look on his face. He glanced at Huoyu Hao and the others indifferently. "Bullshit." Wang Dong immediately cursed. "An evil soul master is still a human soul master. You're also a human soul master. Who knows if you'll become an evil soul master?" As he cursed, Wang Dong pointed at the student without the slightest bit of fear. That student from Beiha Academy didn't get angry. He only sneered. "Ha ha!" as expected of a student of Shrek Academy. On the other side, Dean Chun from Purple Star College laughed out loud. "You're so young, yet you're already fearless. Not only are your words logical, but you also have the courage to stand out. Since that's the case, what do you think, Dean Yen?" He smiled as he looked at Yen Xiaozhe. Yen Xiaozhe was silent for a moment, then looked at the other deans beside him. Afterwards, he looked at Huoyu Hao and the others. "Dean, we're not afraid." Huoyu Hao and the others seemed to understand the meaning in Yen Xiaozhe's eyes. It was as if he was asking them if they were really going to stand out and prove their identities as soul contractors. These kids have some backbone. Qian Duo looked at them with admiration. "Old Yen, you want them to leave, even though you want to protect them. Although you want to protect them, they're representing our Shrek Academy by standing out. When has our Shrek Academy ever cowered in fear?" Although the two of them were from different academies and had a competitive relationship within the Shrek Academy, they were still on the same page when it came to outsiders. Yen Xiaozhe looked at Dean Chun and Huantian. 3 days later, in the soul dueling area, these 4 soul contractors can accept the exchange between your 2 academies. These kids have just returned from the soul beast forest. I'm sure the 2 deans won't refuse to give them some time to rest, right? Fine, 3 days it is. Huantian waved his hand. Then we'll have an exchange 3 days later. We'll see if you're a soul contractor or not. Kids, rest well, Dean Chun said to Huoyu Hao and the others in a rather amicable manner. However, these soul beasts are very dangerous. Even if they want to rest, I suggest that you send people to watch over them strictly. Otherwise, you won't be able to explain yourself to Dean Yen from the inspection department. Watch over them strictly. Yen Xiaozhe glanced at him indifferently, but didn't reply. The 2 deans quickly left the academy with the 2 groups of people. "How infuriating!" Wang Dong said angrily. "They're accusing us of something the moment they arrive. Heretical path. Your whole family is the heretical path. Why are you saying this now?" Huoyu Hao said unhappily. If Dean Yen hadn't fought for 3 days for us. Huoyu Hao suddenly fell silent as he spoke until here. Dean, I don't understand. Xiao Xiao suddenly opened her mouth. Why should our Shrek Academy care about their doubts? Isn't our Shrek Academy the #1 academy on the continent? Why are these two academies poking their nose into our business? Huo Hao nodded. He'd thought of this as well. Why should the Great Shrek Academy care about the doubts of other academies? Because it involves too many things. Ma Xiaotao glanced at them and shook her head. Soul contractors have changed the traditional cultivation system of soul masters. They've gone from killing soul beasts for soul rings to becoming companions with soul beasts. This change is subversive. It's even more exaggerated than soul engineers. It's very difficult for many academies to accept this change. Tradition. In terms of tradition, the Shrek Academy was the most traditional Soul Master Academy. In fact, as the Federation developed over the years, the Shrek Academy realized that if they didn't seek to change, the future path of Soul Masters would be even more difficult. However, it wasn't that easy to challenge tradition. It was just like how Yan Xiaozhi didn't approve of soul contractors. Accurately speaking, he didn't approve of them either. However, as the dean of the Martial Soul Department, even if he didn't approve of them, he still had to protect them, even if they were from the outer courtyard. After all, they were Shrek's students. This is only one of the reasons. Zhang Lishuan walked over and furrowed her brows. The Martial Soul Inspection Team is one of the few special departments with the greatest authority in the Federation. Strictly speaking, the higher-ups of the Shrek Guardians are the Martial Soul Inspection Team. They're in charge of anything that disrupts the Federation's social order, spreads the word about evil Soul Masters, and maintains the stability of the world of Soul Masters. Since they're involved in the investigation, these two academies are obviously trying to intimidate us. The other reason is because of the few of you. Your talents are extraordinary and rarely seen in the Shrek Academy. As competitors, you'll definitely meet them in the Continental Elite Soul Master Tournament half a year later. If you're allowed to grow, you'll be a threat to them. Therefore, it'll be very difficult for the Academy to use force to chase these two academies away, unless... End of chapter. Chapter 1154. Speaking of which, Zhang Lishuan was silent. If not for the fact that Elder Mu and Elder Xian were injured and needed to recuperate, the Shrek Academy wouldn't have been able to do so. In fact, even the Martial Soul Inspection Team wouldn't have dared to interfere with the Shrek Academy. Elder Xian was slowly replacing Elder Mu, and his position as the Master of the Sea God's Pavilion was set in stone. In addition, there were also the Federation's honorary Douluo Heavenly Kings. If the Federation didn't send out the 12 Douluo Heavenly Kings, they wouldn't interfere with the internal affairs of the Shrek Academy. Wang Dong snorted coldly. So you're saying that we're evil, and that we're similar to evil soul masters are all excuses? No, it's not an excuse. Yan Xiaozhi shook his head. That's what they think. From the bottom of his heart, he believed that soul renters were deviant and unorthodox. The inspection team is investigating because they think that soul charters will disrupt the Federation's social order and destroy the ecology of the world of soul masters. After hearing this, everyone was stunned. It's not that easy to challenge tradition. Qian Duo sighed. We acknowledge soul engineers because we've fought for many years and realized that soul engineers are extraordinary. Even so, we encountered many difficulties when we first established the Soul Tool Department. But what about soul charters? Just this aspect of becoming partners with soul beasts is much more exaggerated than using soul power to drive soul tools. Furthermore, it's very difficult for others to acknowledge them. Children, we don't acknowledge soul charters, but we don't oppose them either. You can only rely on yourselves. Qian Duo glanced at them. Since you've chosen this path, you can only rely on yourselves. You can only rely on yourselves to prove yourselves. This path is very long and difficult. There will be many people who will obstruct you along the way. These two academies are just the beginning. Perhaps it was because he was the vice dean of the Soul Tool department. He must be very emotional. When soul engineers first appeared in the Federation, many people looked down on them. This was because the Sun-Moon Empire had been crushed by the Martial Soul Federation. Many people thought that the Martial Soul Federation could defeat soul engineers with soul tools, and that they could still defeat them in the future. Therefore, why would they learn a cultivation system that they had defeated? If they were defeated, wouldn't that prove that they couldn't? It was because of this reason that the Soul Tool department had encountered many obstacles when it was first established. Even now, it was still developing very slowly. However, only those who stood at the very top realized that soul tools were bound to shine brightly in the future society. Soul masters were strong because of the Douluo continent. After the energy tide and the emergence of the soul core system, soul masters generally became stronger. Back then, the Sun-Moon Empire and the Sun-Moon continent weren't affected by the energy tide when the continents collided. It wasn't until the fifth energy tide that the Sun-Moon continent was affected. However, at that time, how could soul engineers compare to soul masters, who were rapidly developing? Furthermore, there were all sorts of cultivation methods that had been created. The combat strength of a high-grade soul master was extremely terrifying. This was how they crushed the Sun-Moon Empire. However, in the 2,000 years after their defeat, the Sun-Moon Empire frantically absorbed all kinds of knowledge about soul masters and the soul core system, and combined them with the soul tools that they were so proud of. Furthermore, due to the nurturing of the energy tide between heaven and earth, large amounts of high-quality rare metal veins were created over the past 1,000 years. This greatly increased the strength of soul tools, and they developed all kinds of new and powerful soul tools. In terms of strength, they gradually caught up with the Federation's soul masters. Because of this, the Federation gradually started to recognize soul engineers, and the obstacles gradually decreased. Many academies also started to establish soul tool departments. However, it was important to note that soul engineers didn't appear in the Federation after 1,000 years of effort. Furthermore, even so, soul engineers weren't very popular in the Federation, and they weren't valued much. Now, an even more ridiculous soul charmer had appeared, and it had overturned the countless years of cultivation methods in the Douluo continent. Huoyu Hao and the others didn't realize how terrifying the resistance brought about by this impact would be. When Qian Duoduo said this, even people at their level could vaguely see. That's because they don't know how good soul charmers are. Wang Dong said confidently, "Little rat, don't you think so? In 3 days, we'll show them the strength of soul charmers. When teacher returns, he'll definitely be proud of us." "That's right," Huoyu Hao said with even more confidence. He had been a soul charmer for a period of time. Now, he even had a second soul beast. Hee. Xiao Xiao played with the diamond dragonhawk on her shoulder. "Little Eagle and I will be able to get used to it in 3 days. When the time comes, they'll definitely be scared shitless by us. We won't be afraid in the future." Yan Xiaozhe and the others looked at the confident group and sighed in their hearts. However, they didn't say anything. "Teacher." Kaitu walked out and stood in front of Fan Yu. He said with a serious expression, "I didn't let you down. I've become a soul charmer. Teacher Wang even found me an amethyst rhino. I roughly know now, soul charmers will definitely become mainstream in the future. Whether it's traditional soul masters or new soul engineers, I think they'll all be replaced by soul charmers." Fan Yu was stunned. He didn't expect his most outstanding disciple to say something like this after only a few days. "In 3 days I'll be able to test it out." Kaitu touched the amethyst rhino on his back, and his eyes flickered. This didn't match his simple and honest physique. However, Fan Yu knew that this disciple of his was full of ideas. Right now, he must have many new ideas. "Teacher, I'm looking forward to it." Fan Yu laughed. Yan Shaozhe and a few others from the dean's faculty didn't think highly of soul charmers. On the contrary, as teachers, they thought highly of soul charmers. What a pity! If only I had a soul beast. Ma Xiaotao shrugged. Then, I could go and interact with it. Speaking of which, Senior Sister Zhang, what happened to you and Elder Wang in that area? Zhang Lishuan was stunned. Her expression changed slightly, but she said plainly, nothing much. Take them and prepare to rest. Remember to take good care of these soul beasts. Nothing can happen to them. Otherwise, they'll be taken away by the people from the investigations department. These soul beasts won't be able to escape death. Ma Xiaotao nodded. That was for sure. Zhang Lishuan left after she finished speaking. Just like that, 3 days passed. Purple Maple Soul Beast Forest. I didn't expect that there would be a second soul beast egg in this forest. Wang Feng smiled. We didn't waste our 3 days of searching here. Fortunately, this evil soul beast egg is still young. This egg is still useful to me. Boss, shouldn't we leave now? Qilin Lord Isimu flew in midair and looked at the egg in his hand. He was delighted. Wang Feng nodded and looked into the distance. It's time to go back and take a look. I wonder if anything happened to those fellows after they returned. P.S. Although I'm resting today, I still wrote 2 chapters to warm up. I'll continue to update tomorrow. Normally, I'll update 7 times at 6 or 7 in the evening, and around 11 at night. Chapter 1155. Muan. Cough cough. Since that's the case, we won't be able to hold you back. Little Xian sighed. However, if you want to go to the extreme north, you'll need to obtain a pass that leads to the border at the back. Otherwise, it'll be very troublesome. This pass can only be issued by the Martial Soul Palace. Otherwise, you'll be intercepted. We can use Shrek Academy's name to apply to the Martial Soul Palace. It'll probably take about a month. That's too long. Wang Feng shook his head. There's no need for a month. You can follow us to the northern border if you really want to go to the extreme north. At this moment, a voice rang out from afar. The person who spoke was dressed in black and had a cold and solemn expression. It was the black-clothed referee from yesterday. He was also someone from the inspection department who came to the academy. Deacon Yuan? Muan looked at the person who came and frowned slightly. Elder Mu. The black-clothed referee from yesterday nodded. I'm Yuan Hong from the inspection department. If you want to go to the extreme north, you can follow us. As the investigation team led by the 3 great Douluo heavenly kings have yet to return, our inspection department intends to send another team into the extreme north's inner circle to take a look at the situation. It just so happens that we're planning to enter the extreme north. This Yuan Hong had a smile on his face. Sir, I've also listened to the lecture just now. Yuan Hong was all smiles. To be honest, it's shocking. If it didn't happen in front of me, I wouldn't dare to believe that someone could create such a mystical cultivation method. I was originally invited to investigate the matter of soul contractors. But after listening to the lecture, even I want to become a soul contractor. He was the referee for yesterday's match, so he had seen every single match very clearly. Naturally, he could more directly sense the strength of a soul contractor, as well as the truth of Wang Feng's words. Wang Feng looked at him a few times. This Yuan Hong should only be in his 60s, but he looked like a middle-aged man in his 40s. A title Douluo should be around 92 or 93. Deacon was the title of the inspection department. Since yesterday, Wang Feng had already discovered the other party's strength. He didn't expect him to appear here. There's still no news from the 3 great Douluo heavenly kings and dozens of high-level soul masters. What's the use of your inspection department going there now? Muan asked indifferently. Ha ha, Elder Mu's words are as sharp as ever. Yuan Hong laughed a few times. That's right. Normally, even if our inspection department is strong, We are far inferior to the investigation team led by the three great Douluo heavenly kings. Even if we go to the extreme north, we might not be able to come out alive. Then aren't you sending him to his death by inviting him? Duo couldn't help but ask. Yuan Hong's appearance at this time was obviously to rope in Wang Feng. In other words, he was also shocked by the power of soul contractors. He wanted to use this opportunity to get Wang Feng to help the inspection department cultivate some soul contractors. Even as a seed. That's not true. Vice Dean Qian might not know about this, Yuan Hong said calmly. I'm sure you know about the Icea sect? The Icea sect was founded several thousand years ago. It is the only sect in the extreme north, and it has a close relationship with the few great hegemons of the extreme north. After the incident of the Dark Devil Realm broke out in the northern Soul Beast Forest, the Icea sect was the first to suffer a destructive blow because it was the closest to the Icea sect. The Icea sect that was located in the Soul Beast Forest was immediately destroyed. Most of the people in the sect are either missing or dead. The Icea sect. Wang Feng's heart moved. He had heard Muin mention it before. It was very simple. Judging from the name, Wang Feng suspected that it was the sect Shui Bing'er had founded back then. Shui Bing'er and Ning Rongrong, the water god who inherited the position of ice god, were a group of sisters. During the 100 years he was sealed, they had also come to visit him. After becoming the ice god, Shui Bing'er and Ning Rongrong had entered the god realm together. She probably founded this sect before going to the god realm and left behind an inheritance that belonged to the ice god. So what? Duo asked. We don't have any news about the three Douluo heavenly kings at the moment, but our auditing department did find a disciple of the Icea sect. The Icea sect has a special passage that can lead to the inner circle of the extreme north. This passage is relatively hidden and can directly lead to the inner circle of the extreme north. Yuan Hong had a confident smile on his face. It is also because of this that our auditing department has the confidence to investigate the situation in the extreme north. After listening to Yuan Hong's words, everyone fell silent. Passage. Wang Feng seemed to understand something. How about it? Yuan Hong looked at Wang Feng. Wang Feng thought for a moment. All right. He didn't think that the situation in the extreme north was so complicated that the Federation had already sealed off the northern border. In fact, other than the northern border, many other soul beast forests had already begun to be sealed off. For a soul beast forest like the Great Star Doe Forest, which covered 3 administrative districts, even if evil soul beasts hadn't appeared yet, the Federation had already sent a team of investigators to investigate beforehand so that they could be prepared in advance. All right, then you can follow me to the north in a few days. Yuan Hong said happily. Soul contractors would definitely spread in the future, so the sooner they learned, the sooner they could enjoy it. Shrek Academy was close to the water, and although their auditing department was a department of the Federation, they had great power and protected the order of the soul world. Naturally, they had to understand and participate in the cultivation of soul contractors as soon as possible. In fact, Wang Feng had also considered this. The Martial Soul Auditing Department had a very high status in the world of soul masters, and if there were to be various regulations for soul contractors in the future, they wouldn't be absent. Furthermore, they were also authoritative, and could be considered unique in the Federation. Since that's the case, we'll send you off in a few days. Mu En and the rest didn't stop them. After all, Wang Feng had already made his choice. They wouldn't be insensible and stop them. Over the next few days, Wang Feng made some preparations. In fact, he mainly instructed Hu Yuhao and the rest. Wang Feng still hoped that these few disciples would be able to shake the continent in the future. 3 days later, at the entrance of Shrek Academy. Teacher, when will you be back? Hu Yuhao asked. It might be very long. At least a year, at most a few years. Wang Feng looked at them. That's a long time? Xiao Zhao's face was filled with reluctance. Teacher, there's still half a year before the new Continental Elite Soul Master Tournament. I still want to see teacher's handsome demeanor at the tournament. Wang Feng was speechless. Teacher, why would you participate in such a tournament? I'll come and take a look when I'm free. Wang Feng rubbed Xiao Zhao's head. This was the most traditional tournament in the history of the Douluo continent, and it had been preserved for tens of thousands of years. It was also the most top-notch tournament. Chapter 1156. Wang Dong snorted coldly and nodded. Then, he said to the girl in front of him, Wang Dong, rank 23 Soul Charger. Martial Soul, Radiant Butterfly Goddess, Soulbound Beast, Flaming Sunflower. The girl opposite him wore a light green outfit. Her figure was curvaceous, and she had a beautiful face. She said calmly, Su Qing, rank 37 Control-type Soul Master. Martial Soul, Algae. A Control-type Soul Charger? Wang Dong was somewhat astonished. However, a martial soul like Algae was of average quality. In the current evolution of the world of Soul Masters, there was no such thing as a Control-type Soul Master completely restraining an Assault-type or Agility-type Soul Master. It still depended on the strength of one's soul power, as well as the strength of one's soul skills. There was no such thing as true restraint. Although his opponent's soul power rank was very high, it would be very difficult to restrain her. Open! The black-clothed referee commanded. Wang Dong took the initiative to attack. The radiant butterfly goddess fused with his body. Wang Dong patted the flaming sunflower on his waist, then directly charged towards Su Qing. Su Qing stood in place and smiled indifferently. A 4 to 5 inch long strand of water-blue algae floated out from her palm. First soul skill, reproduction. Su Qing gently swung her arm, and 2 purple and 1 black soul rings lit up. The water-blue algae spat out countless spores that scattered across the soul dueling arena and the air. The spores, which were as fine as fungi, drifted along with the wind. They were incomparably dense and difficult to dodge. The moment Wang Dong charged over, he was possessed by these spores. Because they were too small, they were very difficult to discover. They were even finer than dust. The moment they possessed him, Su Qing's first soul ring shone even brighter. Immediately afterwards, strands of algae spread out from Wang Dong's body and quickly covered his entire body. In the blink of an eye, he was wrapped up like a dumpling. Because it was too difficult to detect, Wang Dong didn't even react. Wang Dong struggled a few times, but discovered that the algae were too dense. Perhaps a single strand wasn't very tough. He could easily break it. However, under the effects of reproduction, there were hundreds to thousands of strands on his body, making it difficult for him to break free. Second soul skill, freezing chi seal. Su Qing's second soul ring lit up. The algae on Wang Dong's body began to emit a cold chi. Under the effect of this cold chi, every strand of algae began to shrink, and their hardness increased greatly. This made it even harder for Wang Feng to move. Even the wings on his back couldn't flap, and he couldn't release any soul skills. Coupled with the fact that the difference in their soul force was too great, even Wang Dong wouldn't be able to struggle free. Third soul skill, lacerate. Su Qing's final black soul ring lit up. It was different from the freshman battles that Wang Dong and Hui Yuhao had experienced before. Su Qing's actions could be said to represent the elite standard of an academy. The so-called elites, apart from their innate talent in soul power, were even more important in their soul skills, their judgment of the battlefield, their distinct fighting style, and their experience. Su Qing was the same. Her talent in soul power was passable, but her soul skills and combat experience could be said to be fast, accurate, and ruthless. She didn't have the slightest sloppy style, but this was enough for her to become an elite of a first-rate academy. This could be seen from the fact that Wang Dong had been completely subdued in less than a minute. Beihe Academy is so sneaky. Control is something that can restrain an assault type like Wang Dong. Huoyu Hao seemed to have thought of something. This seaweed's attribute is extremely effective against the flaming sunflower. Furthermore, Su Qing's cultivation is so high that she's able to suppress both Wang Dong and the flaming sunflower in terms of soul power. If he hadn't brought the flaming sunflower with him and had attacked Su Qing together, her opponent's control would have been greatly reduced. However, Wang Dong had brought the flaming sunflower with him. She was able to control both him and the flaming sunflower. Thus, when she saw that Wang Dong had been subdued, she mercilessly used her second and third soul skills. A one-hit kill. Let them go first next time. Xiao Xiao snorted. They're trying to use their attribute to restrain us and our soul beasts so that we can't display our strength. In any case, there are still 3 matches left. Even if Wang Dong loses, we'll still be there. I feel that Wang Dong won't lose. Hikaitu said. He definitely has his own plans. Teacher Wang taught us that different soul-bound beasts have different fighting styles. Wang Dong definitely has a deeper meaning for putting the soul-bound beast on his waist. Everyone was stunned. At this moment, on the stage, Wang Dong laughed. What are you laughing at? Su Qing was somewhat puzzled. If you lose, my laceration soul skill will cause a lot of damage to you. Your soul power will leak, and your body will enter a state of paralysis. Even if you struggle free, you won't have much soul power left. I've already held back by not using a soul tool. Otherwise, you would have lost even faster. Haven't you overlooked something? Wang Dong said calmly. What? Su Qing paused. Are you talking about your soul beast, the flaming sunflower? I can't deny that it's a rare plant-type soul beast. To me, it's a suitable soul ring. However, it's too young, and its strength is ordinary. Furthermore, you can't display its strength by tying it to your waist. In summary, your so-called soul contract master isn't worth mentioning. It doesn't change anything for you. Su Qing shook her head. Really? A proud smile appeared on Wang Dong's face. Then you're underestimating soul contract masters too much. Furthermore, who says that I can't display little sunflower's strength? Su Qing looked at Wang Dong, but didn't reply. In the next moment, Wang Dong's body lit up with a scorching light. It started from his waist. The scorching light followed the blue seaweed and spread to Wang Dong's entire body. I'm a soul contract master. My soul beast has already started fighting. Wang Dong laughed loudly. Little sunflower, use your second soul skill, flaming chi explosion. A scorching hot aura erupted from Wang Dong's body. It was as if it had been accumulating for a long time. In that instant, Wang Dong's face turned scarlet red, and his aura gradually increased. A 500-year-old flaming sunflower can't compare to my soul force. With just this flaming chi, it's impossible for it to melt and burn the cold seaweed. Su Qing wasn't worried at all. Who said I'm going to melt? Wang Dong laughed confidently. After he finished speaking, Wang Dong suddenly struggled, and the seaweed that was covered in thorns suddenly became incomparably soft. She immediately broke free. Expansion by heat and contraction by cold. Don't you understand such a simple principle? When your seaweed is attached to the cold air, it will become extremely hard and shrink, which will increase its binding power. However, when it comes into contact with little sunflower's flaming chi, the seaweed will expand and become soft. Wang Dong laughed. What era are we in now? Do you think that soul skills only rely on soul force? You should learn more about life from your teacher. Su Qing was stunned, and her face immediately darkened. At the same time, this flaming chi explosion is a type of control-breaking soul skill. Aside from being able to break all sorts of bindings, the flaming chi can also increase my strength and speed by 10%. Why else do you think I tied little sunflower to my body? Wang Dong charged towards Su Qing. Also, your third soul skill consumed a large amount of my soul force. Unfortunately, You don't know that little sunflower's first soul skill is called Sunflower Origin Power. As long as it's by my side, it'll be able to give me its soul force. You consumed my soul force just now, but little sunflower is perfectly fine. That's why I'm full of soul force right now. After being strengthened, the flaming qi on Wang Dong's body ignited all of the spores in the air. End of chapter. Chapter 1157. If it had been seaweed, the heat wouldn't have been enough to ignite it. However, if it had been in its spore form, it wouldn't have been able to resist the heat. Su Qing's expression darkened when she saw this. She'd lost her chance. She hadn't expected the plant-type soul beast to have such a use. Although it looked easy to control, it was actually tied around the waist specifically to prevent the opponent from being controlled like this. Su Qing didn't give up. Without her soul skill, her seaweed would be greatly reduced. Furthermore, she wouldn't be able to control her opponent immediately. She directly used her seaweed, but it was cut apart by Wang Dong's beautiful, but incomparably sharp wings. Straight for the yellow dragon. First soul skill, butterfly wing blade. The golden blade cut apart Su Qing's seaweed and landed beside her. Without her first soul skill, reproduction, it would be very difficult for Su Qing to take the initiative and control the situation. If she directly used the seaweed, it would be dodged or even destroyed. You've lost, Wang Dong said proudly as he landed in front of Su Qing. Su Qing's expression turned ugly. She stared at the flaming sunflower on Wang Dong's waist for a long time before sighing. Shrek Academy's soul contracted master, Wang Dong wins. The black-clothed referee said indifferently. Yay! Wang Dong suddenly jumped up and proudly made a victory sign towards Huo Yuhao and the others on the high platform. After that, he returned to the high platform. For a moment, the entire soul dueling arena burst into cheers and laughter. They hadn't expected such a reversal. One had to know that Wang Dong was a genuine rank 23 soul master, unlike Wang Feng. Her body and soul power were both at this level. In the traditional world of soul masters, a rank 37 control-type soul elder was a natural counter to assault-type or agility-type soul masters like Wang Dong. Even her soul skill was a natural counter to Wang Dong's flying ability. It was clear that Beha Academy had done their homework. However, they still lost. The power of a soul-contracted beast was truly displayed in front of many people. When a soul master and a soul beast worked together, the strength they could unleash was even more powerful and unpredictable. On the high platform, Yan Xiaozhe and the higher-ups of the academy saw everything clearly. This Wang Dong is pretty smart. When the match started, he lightly patted the flaming sunflower. Qian Duo pinched his chin. That flame qi explosion should be a soul skill that accumulates power. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so strong. It was also at that time that she had already started preparing this move. Carrying a soul beast on your body seems like a huge flaw in your fighting style, but it's a flaw that you're purposely exposing to others. He definitely didn't think of that. The only possibility is that Teacher Wang gave him a battle strategy, and combined it with the flaming sunflower's abilities. Speaking of which, this 100-year flaming sunflower actually has two powerful soul skills. His support-type abilities are much stronger than those of ordinary auxiliary-type soul masters. The crux of the matter is that it's extremely suitable for Wang Dong, who's an assault type. Impressive. Qian Duo sighed. Although this soul beast isn't very old, it's a rare breed, so it's the most suitable for Wang Dong. With this soul beast, many control-type soul masters would find it difficult to deal with her. In addition, it also has auxiliary abilities. The upper echelons seem to be witnessing the rise of a powerful offensive god of war. With Su Qing's abilities, don't even mention a rank 20 soul master. She wouldn't even be afraid of two rank 30 soul warriors. She wouldn't even have a problem fighting one against two. This soul contract master is really something. Over at Northern He Academy's side, Huantian frowned slightly and asked, "Their teacher hasn't returned yet?" "Not yet. I heard that he brought them to the Purple Maple Soul Beast Forest a week ago. However, these students came back first," the middle-aged teacher replied. This information wasn't hard to find out. "Next, let Fei Long go," Huantian said. "There's a rank 30 Soul Elder among the remaining students. Let Fei Long go up and win. We can't lose twice in a row on their home ground, and at the hands of a Soul Contract Master." "All right." On the high platform, following Wang Dong's return, Hikaitu walked down. As a rank 30 Soul Elder, Hikaita's fighting strength wasn't strong, because he was a food-type Soul Master. He could only rely on his Soul Tools to attack his opponent. However, Soul Tools had many flaws. Even if he was a long-range Soul Tool, his low mobility and high Soul Power consumption were both flaws. Furthermore, food-type Soul Masters had weak defenses. Once they attacked and couldn't dodge, they basically had no hope of winning. Naturally, they had their advantages, and that was their powerful offensive strength that far exceeded their Soul Power rank. "Don't worry, I won't embarrass Teacher Wang." Hikaitu waved his hand towards them, patted the amethyst rhino beside him, and walked down from the high platform. In the Soul Dueling Arena, Northern He Academy had sent out another person. It was a handsome man with a well-proportioned figure. He was the student who'd spoken disdainfully about Soul Contract Masters. Hikaitu, rank 34 food-type Soul Contract Master. His martial soul is the cigar, and his soul-bound beast is the amethyst rhino. Hikaitu ignored the disdain in his opponent's eyes, and calmly introduced himself. Fei Long, rank 43 Soul Warrior. His martial soul is the Storm Leopard. Fei Long said arrogantly, "Don't worry, we have Soul Tools, but we won't use them on you." The Storm Leopard was a rare beast martial soul that focused on attack and speed. Soul Masters who possessed this martial soul were all agility-type Soul Masters. However, they also had strong offensive abilities. The only weakness was their defense. However, there was a famous saying among agility-type Soul Masters: as long as you ran fast enough, your enemy's attacks wouldn't be able to catch up with you. To many Soul Engineers, agility-type Soul Masters were the most difficult to deal with. This was because many Soul Tools were very cumbersome and had limited accuracy, even though they were very powerful. They couldn't hit their enemies. As the fastest Soul Masters, agility-type Soul Masters were the natural nemesis of many Soul Tools. Unless it was a Soul Tool with a large area of effect, there was a chance of hitting agility-type Soul Masters. However, it was very low. On the other hand, food-type Soul Masters were even more afraid of close combat Soul Masters. Furthermore, Hikaitu was a Soul Engineer. Begin. The black-clothed referee didn't give the two of them a chance to speak. With a command, Fei Long was the first to make a move. He was around 18 years old, and his talent was already very good for him to have such strength. Naturally, he had more fighting experience than Hikaitu. The amethyst rhinoceros was a rare soul beast that specialized in defense. 3 days ago, this rhinoceros had been seen for the first time. The Academy's teachers had analyzed it. It was obvious that Hikaitu was using this rhinoceros as his defense, while he attacked with his own body. As a famous genius of the Soul Tool Department, Hikaitu wasn't famous in the Martial Soul Department. However, he definitely wasn't an unknown person. It wasn't easy to find out, but it was easy to get a rough idea. Now that they knew about this amethyst rhinoceros, it wasn't difficult to deal with Hikaitu. All they had to do was kill Hikaitu. This amethyst rhinoceros was a bit older than the others, being close to 700 years old. Even an assault-type soul ancestor would have to expend quite a bit of effort to break through the defenses of this rhinoceros if they wanted to. But on the other hand, the price of a high defense was a low attack power. Since Hikaitu was from the Soul Tool Department, he was bound to have a powerful soul tool. However, he wasn't a threat to him. This was because he was an agility-type soul master. End of chapter. Chapter 1158. First soul skill, surging winds and clouds. It increased one's speed by 50%, and at the same time, it released a cloud of smoke that greatly concealed one's figure. It was a soul ring taken from the skylark. Under the white clouds, Fei Long's figure disappeared in a flash. At the same time, Hikaitu immediately summoned his own soul tool when Fei Long made his move. Densely packed metal plates with all kinds of metal pipes assembled on Hikaita's body. A cigar appeared in his mouth. After holding it in his mouth, Hikaita's gaze became even sharper. At the same time, the amethyst rhino beside him moved, and a streak of purple light extended from its head to Hikaitu. Soul cannon. Hikaitu aimed his hands at the figure moving through the cloud of smoke and blasted it out. Dozens of metal pipes were like machine guns as they released dense tongues of fire. Boom, boom, boom. Dense explosions rang out, causing the black-clothed referee to furrow his brow. The strength of such a long-range soul tool was close to that of a Class 3 soul tool. The damage it dealt was extremely terrifying, and even a soul ancestor wouldn't be able to take it. However, the countless tongues of fire didn't even touch Fei Long's clothes. The cloud of smoke was blasted apart again and again. Second soul skill, Cloud Shadow Track. Only the sound of a soul ring flashing could be heard from the cloud of smoke. The densely packed figures flickered, making it difficult for Hikaitu to see their figures. It was almost dawn. His soul tool could only fire randomly to suppress his opponent's attacking rhythm. However, it didn't have any substantial effect. Suddenly, the amethyst rhino let out a loud moo. A dim purple barrier rose from its body. Instantly, an ear-piercing sound could be heard, like the sound of a sharp weapon tearing something apart. Fei Long suddenly appeared at a corner of the barrier. The sharp claws on its body were like metal, and emitted a faint cold light. When they landed on the purple barrier, countless marks appeared. What an amethyst rhino! Fei Long was astonished. He didn't expect such a cumbersome amethyst rhino to be so sharp. It's a pity that your defense can't block it. Fei Long didn't continue to attack and immediately dodged. A series of tongues of fire shot out from the metal pipes on Hikaita's body. Fei Long barely dodged. Following this, Hikaitu made use of the purple barrier released by the amethyst rhinoceros to unleash a barrage of firepower at Fei Long. Fei Long tried several times, but was unable to break through the purple light barrier in a short period of time. He could only allow Hikaitu to continue attacking him. Coupled with the defense of the amethyst rhino, it was simply shameless. Seeing this, everyone was shocked. Who would have thought that the rank 30 Hikaitu would be able to suppress a rank 40 soul ancestor with the help of his soul-bound beast? This left the other party completely helpless. Soul tools were clumsy and heavy. Even though they could unleash extremely powerful attacks, their own weaknesses were also a huge problem. Now, with the amethyst rhino's defense, this problem was perfectly solved. However, as Hikaita's teacher, Fan Yu was still frowning. Soul engineers also had a very obvious weakness. They expended a lot of soul power. Any soul tool's consumption of soul power wasn't something a soul master's soul skill could compare to. Other than stationary soul tools, such powerful firepower was bound to consume a large amount of soul power. As long as Fei Long kept dodging, wouldn't Hikaitu be able to win without a fight when he ran out of soul power? Fei Long clearly knew this and kept dodging. In just a few minutes, Hikaita's body started to emit black smoke. The metal pipes were bright red. Evidently, they were at their limit. On the other hand, Fei Long was completely unharmed, except for some light injuries caused by the explosion. Furthermore, the smoke in the arena was even denser because of the explosion. Only a few people could see Fei Long's figure. Similarly, only a few people could see Hikaita's figure. You've lost. Fei Long looked at Hikaitu in the distance and said plainly, "Is such a shameless fighting style the style of soul charlatans? From a fighting perspective, it's not bad. However, that's all." Hikaitu only shook his head and didn't say anything. "Are you still not going to admit defeat?" Fei Long frowned slightly. Hikaitu didn't have much soul power left. He had to admit that his opponent didn't have any weaknesses when he used a long-range soul tool and the Amethyst Rhino's defense. However, it was a pity that he was up against an agility-type soul ancestor. As a result, this was a fight on two completely different levels. If it were any other soul ancestor over rank 40, they would have been defeated without a single injury. "You're from the Shrek Academy. You're quite stubborn." Fei Long laughed. "Then I'll defeat you personally. 4th soul skill, Wind Speed Claw." After he finished speaking, Fei Long charged towards Hikaitu again. His claws grew into the shape of sharp blades, and his speed increased by 30%. A purple light barrier rose once again. In just a few blinks of the eye, Fei Long was already in front of Hikaitu. He tore apart the Amethyst Rhino's light barrier. Although this light barrier was extremely sturdy, Hikaitu would definitely be defeated if it was destroyed by Fei Long's illusory attacks. However, a smile appeared on Hikaita's face at this moment. In the next moment, he moved. He clapped his hands lightly, and pieces of black equipment that resembled turning heads appeared in his hands. Following this, Hikaita's hands started to move. However, he didn't install the soul tools on his body this time. Instead, he installed them on the Amethyst Rhino's body. It was extremely fast. In just a few seconds, a small stationary soul tool appeared on the Amethyst Rhino's back. A long cannon barrel was suddenly aimed at Fei Long. "Little Purple. Retract the purple light barrier, lock onto him, and fire," Hikaitu shouted. The Amethyst Rhino's purple scales started to shine with intense light. The soul power in its body flowed into the stationary soul tool on its body. Hikaitu had already installed a Class 2 high-explosive shell into the stationary soul tool. When the black-clothed referee saw that it was a Class 2 high-explosive shell, he stopped him. A Class 2 high-explosive shell wasn't very powerful. It wouldn't kill anyone. At most, it would cause some injuries. If it was a Class 1 high-explosive shell, it would be hard to say. He had to make a move, because Fei Long had broken the rules. He suddenly retracted the light barrier, and Fei Long was caught off guard. Following this, he felt an ice-cold spiritual force lock onto him. Before he could react, a premonition of danger surged into his mind. Boom! In the next moment, the cannon barrel that was aimed at him directly blasted towards Fei Long. Boom, boom, boom. After a series of explosions, the cannon barrel on the Amethyst Rhino's back released a huge recoil force. If it were Hikaitu, he definitely wouldn't be able to withstand this recoil force. His body might even be shaken apart. However, it was different now. End of chapter. Chapter 1159. The Amethyst Rhino stood where it was, and was only pushed back a few centimeters. A huge cloud of smoke was heard. 3 in a row. Using a soul beast to bind a stationary soul tool was indeed extraordinary. "Little Purple, let's go." Hikaitu jumped onto the Amethyst Rhino's back and shouted, "Let them see that stationary soul tools can move." Moo. The Amethyst Rhino carried Hikaitu and quickly moved. As they moved, Hikaitu attached a cannon to the stationary soul tool that was tied to the Amethyst Rhino's body. He fired 2 more high-explosive cannon shells before he slowly stopped. The cloud of smoke gradually dissipated. In the distance, Fei Long's battered body was revealed. The Amethyst Rhino was also a little tired as it stopped and lay on the ground. Hikaitu withdrew the soul tool from the Amethyst Rhino's body and smiled as he watched this scene. Fan Yu had already stood up on the high platform. He was shocked and surprised as he looked at Hikaitu. No one knew better than him what this meant. Stationary soul tools were the most powerful type of soul tool, and they didn't consume a lot of soul power. However, their flaws were also obvious. They couldn't be moved, and they weren't portable. They were difficult to locate and lock onto. They could only be used for special attacks or for defensive purposes. However, with Hikaitu and his soul beast working together, they could easily move and attack. This was an epic-making breakthrough, and its significance was huge. It can really be done. Fan Yu was a little agitated. Dean Qian, look, I told you that soul contract masters and soul engineers can be combined. The combined effect is far greater than that of a single soul engineer. Soul contract beasts can also be attached to soul tools. What does this mean? This means that the flaws of soul engineers and soul tools can be fixed, even in war. A soul engineer with a soul contract beast is like carrying a fortress with him, and it's even mobile. Not only are soul cultivators useful in the world of soul cultivators, but they're also very useful in war. Duo was also shocked as he watched. A battle between two mere soul exalts, no matter how exciting it was, shouldn't have been able to shock someone of his level to this degree. At most, he would praise it a little. However, the scene before him was different. As the vice dean of the Soul Tool Department, and his wife was the dean of the Soul Tool Department, he naturally understood what this meant. Unbelievable. This soul contractor has endless possibilities. Duo suppressed the excitement in his heart. He was very clear about the flaws of soul engineers. Duo was very clear about the flaws of soul tools. However, at the very least, Hikaita's flaw had been resolved. When soul beasts and soul tools were combined, and there were soul masters to command and assist them, the fighting strength that they could unleash was simply too terrifying. Old Yen, this soul charmer might redefine the entire continent in the future. The more Duo thought about it, the more he felt that this soul renderer was an epic-making creation. Yen Xiaozhi remained silent. It's still too early to say that. Yen Xiaozhi whispered, can you guarantee that nothing will happen to the soul beast? I can't guarantee it. Duo shook his head. But don't you know? Can you guarantee that there won't be any accidents during our cultivation? As long as we cultivate, regardless of whether we're a soul master or a soul engineer, there will be risk. Soul charmers also have risk. You're still too traditional. You don't want to believe that soul masters and soul beasts can fight together. After a while, Yen Xiaozhi nodded gently and said, you're right. Perhaps when he returns, he'll give us a real lesson on soul charmers. Only then will we be able to fully understand them. In the soul dueling arena, as the battle came to an end, many of the students in the stands were dumbfounded. Perhaps they had never expected a soul engineer to be able to work so well with a soul beast. Many students from the Soul Tool Department looked at Hikaita's amethyst rhino with envy. The beauty of a soul beast paired with a soul tool was a fatal poison to soul engineers like them. It was too dazzling and cool. Next was Xiao Xiao. Beiha Academy's side was silent. Brother Kaitu, you're too impressive. I didn't expect you to install a soul tool on your amethyst rhino in just a few days. Huoyu Hao looked at Hikaitu with admiration. Little junior brother, your talent isn't inferior to mine. Just your spiritual detection alone means that you're destined to be an outstanding soul engineer. You don't have to admire me. You'll be stronger than me in the future. Hikaitu laughed embarrassedly. Forget it. With Little Rat's small body, there's no way he'll be able to carry your entire body of metal bricks. Wang Dong giggled. That's where you're wrong. Huoyu Hao was furious. He said confidently, I sleep in the same room with you every day. Don't you know whether I have muscles or not? I only look small, but my body is full of muscles. After saying that, Huoyu Hao said with disdain, do you think I'm like you, with skin as soft as a girl's? What did you say? Wang Dong's face turned red. Are you asking for a beating? Who's like a girl, and you still have the cheek to say that? You're in the dormitory every day without wearing any clothes. It's like you're an exhibitionist. Wow, Wang Dong, are you a guy? Isn't it normal for guys to be shirtless in their rooms? You're so delicate. Exhibitionist. You're so delicate. Hikaitu looked at the two of them arguing again and couldn't help but facepalm. After a while, the two of them were arguing until their faces were red. Teacher should be back soon, right? Wang Dong said while panting. I wonder if he'll be happy and proud when he sees our performance? It'll be my turn soon. I really hope that teacher can come back early. Huoyu Hao couldn't help but say. It was probably the mentality of wanting to show off in front of their teacher. Speaking of which, even if they were mature and sensible, they were still only 12-years-old kids apart from Hikaitu. Something doesn't seem right. At this moment, Hikaitu said in a low voice, Xiao Xiao might have met her match. Hearing this, the two of them were startled and immediately looked towards the arena, at the same time. On a certain stage in the Seoul dueling area, Wang Feng wore a black robe and sat in the spectators' stand, secretly observing the situation. He had already arrived, but he didn't appear immediately after hearing about this matter. Instead, he secretly observed these guys to see if they had any outstanding performances. After watching these two matches, Wang Feng felt that he'd really taught them well. Of course, the true strength of the Soul Renderer's pinch was also revealed. However, little Xiao, this little girl, seems to have met her match. P.S. There are 2 more. Please count the vote. End of chapter. Chapter 1160. After watching these 2 matches, Wang Feng realized that the two of them had grown quite a bit. Of course, this was related to their ability as soul charmers. Although he'd given them some pointers, most of it had to do with their performance. Wang Dong and Hikaitu had both displayed the strength that they should have, which was why they'd been able to easily defeat their opponents. However, Xiao Zhao's next opponent would be a little troublesome. Wang Feng watched with rapt attention. He hoped that this little girl would be able to surprise him. In the soul dueling arena, standing opposite Xiao Xiao was another girl. Her appearance and figure could only be considered passable. She was older than Xiao Xiao, at 18 years old. However, her soul power was much weaker than Fei Long's. She was only at rank 39. However, this girl's eyes were misty and seductive. Even though she was 18 years old, she had a bit of a prostitute's aura. Even her clothes were relatively revealing, which added to her charm. This was especially true for her shining white thighs. Even many young and energetic students couldn't take their eyes off her, and swallowed their saliva. Huang Yan, a rank 39 soul engineer. Her martial soul is a megaphone. Little sister, you have to be careful. Huang Yan gave Xiao Xiao a coquettish wink and smiled beautifully. A soul engineer. Xiao Xiao looked at Huang Yan in astonishment. This was her first time fighting a soul engineer. Megaphone? This martial soul seemed to come from the Sun Moon Empire, which was relatively advanced in soul tools. According to the Federation's records and research on martial souls, they'd discovered that the birth of a martial soul was inextricably linked to the continent's civilization, social changes, geographical factors, and so on. For example, many martial souls in the Sun Moon Empire were related to soul tools. On the other hand, martial souls were relatively rare in the origin Douluo continent. However, to be honest, a martial soul like a megaphone, can it fight? Xiao Xiao laughed. Those who possessed such a martial soul wouldn't engage in a combat-related profession. They would usually have a secondary profession. It was rare for the hosts of large-scale banquets, feasts, and competitions to be involved in combat-related professions. For example, in some competitions, the battle between 2 parties was too grand. The Continental Elite Soul Master Tournament had the most powerful high-ranked Soul Master group. Only Soul Masters at rank 70 and above had the qualifications to participate. Once a battle of this level started, it would cover an area of at least 5,000 square meters. Normal hosts and commentators would not be able to cover such a large area. Even if they shouted until their throats were broken, it would be useless. There were also titled Douluo participating in the tournament. The scale of the battle was even greater. If he wanted to explain and spread the news of the battle in time, he would have to rely on this special megaphone martial soul or a similar martial soul. Not just one or two, but a group. Little sister, you'll be at a disadvantage if you underestimate any soul master. Huang Yan giggled again. Her giggles were like billowing waves, causing Xiao Xiao to roll her eyes. Tisk! Xiao Xiao stroked the baby eagle on her shoulder, and a trace of craftiness flashed in her eyes. The Vajra Dragonhawk was a powerful offensive-type soul beast. Its defense was also very strong, and it could be said to be one of the best flying-type soul beasts. From the name alone, it could be seen that those with the word dragon were not bad. The various names given to soul beasts by the Federation were often the most direct way to express a soul beast's characteristics and strength. Little eagle, go! Xiao Xiao gently turned her palm, and an emerald-green jade flute appeared in her hand. Melodious and low laughter gradually sounded. First soul skill, falling jade. Xiao Zhao's thoughts. Xiao Zhao's soul skill was very unique. Every song was a special little song. Through the spiritual power contained in the flute sound, it caused the enemy to fall into various states. Her long skirt fluttered, and the jade flute in Xiao Zhao's mouth shook out circles of invisible sound waves that spread out. This flute sound could spread as far as 100 meters, covering more than half of the 2,000 square meters of the Great Soul Arena. At the same time, the Vajra Dragonhawk flew into the sky and let out a loud and clear cry. Its golden feathers were as strong as steel, and it was handsome and flying. It even carried a little dragon's might. The Vajra Dragonhawk's long cry was inexplicably compatible with Xiao Zhao's flute sound. Screech! The Vajra Dragonhawk spread its wings high, and like a speeding rocket, it attacked Huang Yan. This first soul skill was a two-way amplification. It could reduce the speed of the enemy's soul skill release, and increase the speed of the party's soul skill release. It was only a 20% amplification and a 10% amplification for every 10 rank. The speed of a soul skill release was often fixed. This was related to the circulation speed of a soul master's soul power and their soul rings. It was very rare to see a soul skill release speed increase. This was very important for soul masters who focused on fighting. Furthermore, it was a two-way amplification. However, Huang Yan didn't release any soul skills. Only a white loudspeaker appeared in her hand. When Xiao Xiao released her soul skill, Huang Yan quickly took out a few soul tool parts and directly inserted them into the loudspeaker. This caused the loudspeaker to double in size. According to Hikade's judgment as a soul engineer, the loudspeaker's power would at least double after these soul tools were installed. Soul tools weren't just used for attacking. They also had many auxiliary abilities. But what was she going to do? Little eagle, use your first soul skill, Vajra Feather's Return. Xiao Zhao's voice couldn't be transmitted to the Vajra Dragonhawk, which was already 100 meters away. Instead, she used the sound of her flute to transmit her orders. Together with her spiritual power, she could transmit her orders to the Vajra Dragonhawk from afar. Through the sound of her flute, Xiao Xiao could control the Vajra Dragonhawk to attack from afar. This made it difficult for her enemies to get close to her. When Xiao Zhao's spiritual power became stronger, she could even use her spiritual power to transmit her orders through her life contract. As soon as the adamantine Dragonhawk received the order, its pair of gilded wings glowed brightly as it spiraled into the air like a golden tornado, descending towards Huang Yan. At this critical moment, Huang Yan didn't panic. She placed the loudspeaker in her mouth with one hand. She took out 2 earplugs to prevent the loudspeaker from entering her ears. She extended 2 middle fingers and a thumb from her other hand to prevent the loudspeaker from entering her mouth. In the next moment, screech! A loud and clear cry sounded from Huang Yan's mouth. This sound covered the entire plaza through the loudspeaker. It was even transmitted to everyone on the stage. Subconsciously, many people covered their ears. This sound was too ear-piercing. However, it was also familiar. This sound was very strange. It didn't sound like a normal person. This is a ventriloquism, Wang Feng exclaimed. Furthermore, this isn't a soul skill. It's just a special technique. It's a technique that hides spiritual power in an ancient ventriloquism. I didn't expect to see such a special technique. Interesting. Chapter 1161. The so-called special skills were similar to the Tang sect's martial arts technique. The difference was that this was a relatively ancient technique. Wang Feng had seen an old man who was good at ventriloquism in his previous life. This is an imitation of an eagle's ventriloquism. What an amazing idea! This Beha Academy was really well prepared. This mouth contained a powerful spiritual attack at level 39. If the Skydream Ice Worm hadn't made a move, it would have been very difficult for Huo Yuhao to win. The world was vast and full of wonders. In this day and age, with the development of martial souls, all kinds of special skills would blossom. Although cultivation methods were rare, there were still people who slowly created them. Techniques similar to the Tang sect's martial arts were also slowly developed. Wang Feng fell into deep thought. 10,000 years had passed. As long as something appeared, it would definitely be similar. 10,000 years ago, the Tang sect's martial arts were renowned throughout the world. 10,000 years later, although the world was still dominated by soul masters, there would definitely be similar special skills that would appear. This was closely related to the martial soul. Huang Yan possessed a megaphone martial soul. Coupled with a soul engineer's soul tool, she was able to unleash the full power of her ventriloquism. He could be said to be a powerful control-type soul master. The elites of these academies, none of them are inferior to the other. Wang Feng nodded to himself. Shrek Academy was very strong. However, the other academies were not to be trifled with either. It was even more so for the elites of first-rate academies. This Huang Yan looked very weak, but in reality, she was stronger than the other two. Under Huang Yan's powerful ventriloquism, the diamond draconic eagle that was like a golden tornado instantly froze, and its powerful attack instantly dissipated. It even let out a crazy screech in the air, circling around endlessly. Xiao Zhao's body also trembled. The jade flute in her hand flew out of her hand, and blood started to flow out of her ears. In her consciousness, her connection with the Vajra draconic eagle was quickly weakening under Huang Yan's ventriloquism. It was no longer possible to transmit orders to the diamond dragonhawk through the flute. In addition, the man and the beast had only been together for 6 or 7 days, so their relationship was not deep enough. He had almost completely lost control of the Vajra dragonhawk. Xiaoying. Since Xiao Xiao couldn't speak, she could only summon him with her psychic power through the soul contract. However, it was clear that it had no effect at all. The Vajra draconic eagle circled in the air, and let out a series of screeches, ignoring Xiao Zhao's call. This caused Xiao Zhao's head to spin. No, I can't lose like this. Xiao Xiao gritted her teeth and put the jade flute in her mouth again. At this point, she was no longer able to use her soul power with her spiritual power. What made the situation even more dangerous was that the Vajra draconic eagle's crimson eyes circled around Huang Yan's mind for a while before charging directly at Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao was shocked when she saw this. He had never thought that this would happen. At this critical moment, Xiao Xiao immediately played a special flute tune. As soon as the flute started to play, a melodious sound that sounded like the sound of a demon instantly filled the air and reverberated around Xiao Xiao. The diamond dragonhawk, which seemed to have lost its soul, suddenly stopped when it was 20 meters away from Xiao Xiao. demonic soul-suppressing melody. This was one of the 3 ancient flute tunes that Wang Feng had secretly learned from the sea witch on the sea god's island. After Xiao Xiao became his disciple, Wang Feng changed the Great Dream Millennium Song, Fu Hai Ping Sacred Song, and demonic soul-suppressing melody from the Warring States period into a flute tune and gave them to Xiao Xiao. This tune that did not contain any soul power or spiritual power allowed the diamond dragonhawk to recover a little from Huang Yan's barking. However, it only circled in the air above Xiao Xiao. Screech! The diamond dragonhawk, which had just gained sentience, fell into a special state of confusion under the intertwining of the 2 tunes. Neither side attacked. Huang Yan's expression changed. She did not think that this little girl would have such a special ability like her. This barking technique consumed a lot of her energy, but even so, she had achieved her goal. After a moment, the 2 of them groaned at the same time. Blood flowed out of Huang Yan's mouth because she had used too much spiritual power, and her body could not take it anymore. However, Xiao Xiao still managed to hold on until the end. She used the demonic soul-suppressing melody to block Huang Yan's rare spiritual attack. Both sides retreated. The diamond dragonhawk saw stars and fell from the sky. Seeing this, Xiao Xiao hurriedly rushed over and hugged the diamond dragonhawk. At this moment, the countless spectators on the high platform released their hands from their ears and watched in shock. The black-clothed referee also walked out and said expressionlessly, "A draw. A draw." Hearing this result, the crowd was in an uproar. They all felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. Everyone could clearly feel Huang Yan's strength. Even a martial soul that seemed to be for entertainment could display such powerful combat strength. This special barking technique could not be blocked by those with lower spiritual power than Huang Yan. Moreover, the other party had deliberately imitated the cry of the diamond dragonhawk and almost made Xiao Zhao's diamond dragonhawk rebel. If not for Xiao Zhao's timely reaction, the soul renderer would have lost this battle. But now it was a draw. This little girl, who was only 12 years old, gritted her teeth and seemed to be satisfied with this result. Tears welled up in her eyes. However, she did not cry. On the other hand, Huang Yan wiped the blood from her mouth and looked at Xiao Xiao with a grave expression. If not for that special flute sound at the end, she would have won. As one of the top young geniuses in Beha Academy, she did not expect a 12-year-old girl to be able to fight her to a draw. It was truly inconceivable. Little sister, when we meet again, elder sister will have to use her soul skill. Huang Yan said with a smile, however, the next time will be during the Continental Soul Master Tournament. I hope that when we meet again, you will still be a soul renderer. With that, Huang Yan turned and left. Xiao Xiao lowered her head and ran up the high platform. Xiao Xiao, it's fine. A draw is already very impressive. Wang Dong hurriedly comforted her. She's a rank 39 soul elder. If it were any of us, we wouldn't have been able to win. That's right. He Kaitu hurriedly said, that Huang Yan is indeed very strong, a draw is already unexpected. He really did not know how to comfort them. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to win either, a draw would depend on luck. Huo Yuhao said solemnly, although her martial soul is not of the spiritual type, she has a special way of using her spiritual power. She might even have a training method, which is very rare. I might not even be able to use a soul skill like that. It's very effective against us. The few of them comforted her. However, Xiao Xiao pursed her lips. With the previous 2 victories as an example, a 12-year-old child went on stage full of confidence. She thought that she would be able to defeat her opponent easily like the previous 2. However, she did not expect that she would suffer and lose face. She was somewhat terrified. Luckily teacher isn't here. I'm so embarrassed, so uncomfortable, Xiao Xiao could not help but cry. If teacher knows, he'll definitely blame me for being useless. I feel that I've let teacher down, all of you won, but I tied. Little Eagle even lost control, woo-woo. Don't worry, teacher isn't here. He won't know. Wang Dong hurriedly patted Xiao Zhao's shoulder. That's right, that's right. Teacher isn't back, so he shouldn't be able to see this scene. He Kaitu nodded. It'll be fine as long as we don't tell teacher about this. Huoyu Hao coughed a few times. Really? Xiao Xiao looked at them with tears in her eyes. The three of them nodded repeatedly. However, at this moment, a slightly angry voice rang out. Do you think that I won't know if you don't tell me? Hearing this, the few of them immediately froze. Xiao Xiao was so scared that the tears on her face immediately stopped. P.S. 7 p.m. Everyone, please vote. Chapter 1162. The four of them looked at Wang Feng, who had suddenly appeared, with stiff faces. How could they have thought that he would suddenly appear here? Especially Xiao Xiao, who was still crying just now, but now she could only stare blankly, unable to say a word. Wang Feng walked over and glared at Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao was so scared that she quickly shrunk her neck like a quail. Teacher, why did you come back? Huoyu Hao looked at Wang Feng in surprise. I came back a long time ago. Wang Feng glanced at them. I saw your battle clearly. His gaze finally fell on Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao quivered and said with grievance, Teacher, I was wrong, it's all my fault. You were wrong, Wang Feng said. Hearing this, Xiao Zhao's mouth twitched, and she couldn't help but want to cry, but in front of her teacher, she didn't dare to cry. You were wrong to want to hide this kind of thing, Wang Feng said with a straight face. In this battle, you performed well. I wanted to praise you, but you little girl, how could you have such thoughts? How do you want me to praise you? Xiao Xiao was stunned and stammered. You don't blame me for not winning? Also, my soul-bonding beast lost control. At that time, they will definitely find an excuse to scold us. Wang Feng glared at Xiao Xiao and couldn't help but laugh. It lost control because the opponent's ventriloquism was special, not because of you. According to what you said, if you meet those strong people who can use spiritual attacks and make a soul master lose control in battle, you can blame the soul master's cultivation system for not being good enough? Wang Feng walked over and touched Xiao Zhao's head. Your performance was already not bad. I thought you would lose, but I didn't expect you to be able to fight to a draw. At the critical moment, you can grit your teeth and play the flute I gave you to resist the opponent's ventriloquism sound wave. A draw is already the most perfect result for you. You did very well. Wang Feng retracted his hand and looked at Xiao Xiao, whose face was red. Next time, don't think about hiding this kind of thing from your teacher, understand? Xiao Xiao nodded and hurriedly wiped the tears on her face, feeling very happy in her heart. The other three thought to themselves that no matter how much they tried to comfort him, it was not as useful as a word of praise from the teacher. That's right, teacher. What exactly is that Huang Yan's ventriloquism? Xiao Xiao raised her head and asked curiously, how can a human emit the voice of a soul beast? In her heart, her teacher was an omnipotent existence. It's a special technique. Wang Feng smiled. This kind of special technique usually requires a lot of time and effort to change part of the body's organ structure to achieve the realm of passing off as real. Through further research, one could infuse one's mental strength into this technique and cause great damage. It's similar to the Tang sect's unique skill that Little Rat learned. Just now, the other party was imitating the sound of an eagle hunting its prey, which caused the adamantine dragonhawk to resonate with it, causing it to feel a surge of killing intent. Coupled with the ventriloquism, the adamantine dragonhawk treated the other party as one of its own and attacked you instead, resulting in this effect. At this point, Wang Feng sighed. In the end, the other party's ventriloquism wasn't enough to affect him. The adamantine dragonhawk's intelligence had just been awakened and it had just formed a soul contract with Xiao Xiao, so their relationship wasn't deep enough. If it had been Huoyu Hao and Little Silver who had been nurturing it for a few months, this situation wouldn't have happened. At most, it would have lost its ability to fight and wouldn't attack its master. Another reason was that although the adamantine dragonhawk was strong, it was also because it was too strong and had an extremely strong offensive power that this situation had occurred. In fact, the reason why Wang Feng had chosen the adamantine dragonhawk for Xiao Xiao was because Xiao Xiao's flute could greatly reduce the adamantine dragonhawk's offensive power. She could use her flute to coordinate with the adamantine dragonhawk. In fact, Xiao Xiao had indeed done it, but she hadn't been able to do it in quantity. After Wang Feng explained it to them, the four of them finally understood. This Huang Yan is really strong. The four of them couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. You don't have to belittle yourselves. These people are all elites that have been nurtured for several years, so it's normal for them to have some tricks up their sleeve. Wang Feng looked into the distance. You guys have just become soul contract masters, so it's already very good that you can fight to this extent. You guys will have a chance to meet again in the future. Xiao Xiao, it won't be too late for you to get back at them then. Xiao Xiao nodded repeatedly. There will be many competitions in the future, so there will always be a chance to meet again. Little rat, it's your turn. Go and prepare. Wang Feng looked at Huiyuhao. Although your soul power rank is the lowest among the three of you, you became a soul contract master the earliest. Do your best. Huiyuhao nodded confidently. His soul power was only at rank 18 now, but it had been nearly 5 months since he became a soul contract master. In the soul dueling arena, it seemed that many people still hadn't recovered from the previous competition. At this moment, the last person from both sides had already left the arena. The competition process was very fast, because it wasn't an official competition, but an exchange competition between the two academies. There was no other process, but it was also because of this that every match affected the hearts of many spectators. The strength displayed by the mysterious soul renderer was shocking and mesmerizing in every match. Now, this last match also ushered in the competition where the gap between the soul power ranks of both sides was the greatest. Standing in front of Huiyuhao was a man. He wasn't a handsome man with a cold face, calm and buzz cut. Looking at it, it gave people a feeling that it was as sharp as a knife. Not simple. This was Huiyuhao's first impression of him. Mo Yang, rank 35 soul elder, volcano martial soul. The man indifferently said. He didn't look very old, only 17 years old. His talent could only be considered above average in the Shrek Academy. However, the volcano martial soul gave Huiyuhao a shock. Volcano? There's such a martial soul? Volcanoes were a special type of terrain, and could also become a martial soul. From a certain point of view, it wasn't impossible. Huiyuhao, rank 18 soul contract master, spirit eyes martial soul, silver patterned silkworm, essence crystal monster. Huiyuhao took a deep breath. Facing a rank 35 soul contract elder was probably the strongest opponent he'd ever faced. However, he'd faced a soul elder ranked opponent with Wang Dong during the freshman assessment. But that was only because he'd used a fusion skill with Wang Dong that he'd won. Now, however, it was a one-on-one. It had to be said that this test wasn't ordinary. Little rat, your opponent isn't simple. You have to be careful. The Skydream Ice Worm reminded him, if you can't beat him, I can help you. End of chapter. Chapter 1163. No, there's no need. This is a proper competition. Brother Skydream, won't you be cheating if you help me? Huiyuhao refuted. I want to use my strength as a soul contract master to defeat him. Although his soul power rank is higher than mine, he has 2 soul contract beasts. If I want to defeat him, I'll definitely have a chance. Not bad, you have quite the backbone. The Skydream Iceworm laughed. Alright, I'm going to sleep. As the Skydream Iceworm's voice gradually disappeared, Huiyuhao calmed himself down. Golden light flickered in his eyes, and the jade shell crystal monster beside him immediately let out a strange cry. With Huoyu Hao as the center, the spiritual detection soul skill spread out in all directions and locked onto Mo Yang. Huoyu Hao's greatest reliance was to use defense as an attack. He was very clear that the biggest gap between the two of them was their soul power. Even if his opponent wanted to resist, he would be able to exhaust his soul power completely. If he attacked again, it would be even more so. Moreover, he didn't have many offensive methods. It was better to wait for his opponent to attack and reveal an opening, than use his most proficient spiritual power to defeat him. In the next moment, Mo Yang also understood. As if he had seen through Huoyu Hao's thoughts, his calm face was like a volcano that was ready to erupt. 3 soul rings mysteriously emerged from his body. A volcano that was several meters tall rose from his body and gradually solidified. Rumble! The volcano landed on the ground, and the entire arena shook slightly. A sulfuric smell spread out from the volcano. His martial soul, which was formed from soul power, was so solid at this moment. It looked like a small hill. First soul skill, magnetic mountain lime. Mo Yang waved his hand and stood behind the small hill. He didn't have the slightest intention of taking the initiative to attack. Huoyu Hao was startled. As expected, this isn't a close combat soul master. He's a powerful long-range tool-type soul master. The effectiveness of Huoyu Hao's spiritual detection would be greatly reduced if he was a long-range soul master. If it was a single-target long-range attack, Huoyu Hao wouldn't be afraid. By relying on spiritual detection and ghost shadow perplexing track, he could dodge many attacks. However, if it was a complex group attack, it would be troublesome. As Mo Yang's voice fell, the small volcano, which was only 7 to 8 meters tall, suddenly trembled. It seemed as if there was a ball of fire burning inside. Then, a thick black smoke spurted out from the crater of the volcano, filling the air of the field. Countless flakes of lime fell from the black smoke. Bang, 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 bang! Several more shots were fired, and countless pieces of lime fell like a torrential rain. My spiritual power is being obstructed. The slightly hot impurities of lime mixed with all kinds of stone chips were scattered all around. Although he wasn't hurt, Huoyu Hao was stunned. He could clearly sense that the spiritual probing was rapidly disappearing. Although it didn't cover a large area, it only covered a third of the 2,000 square meters of the arena. However, it also greatly hindered his spiritual detection. Huoyu Hao's heart sank. As expected, the other party had come prepared. The other party knew everything about the 4 of them. However, Huoyu Hao had to admit that his opponent was indeed very powerful. His spiritual detection was greatly reduced. This meant that it would be difficult for him to dodge the following attacks with his spiritual detection. Huoyu Hao's spiritual detection allowed him to see everything within 70 to 80 meters clearly in his mind, just like a 3-dimensional map. If there were any changes, Huoyu Hao would be able to sense them immediately. This gave him a great opportunity to dodge. However, as the special lime fell, his spiritual detection was greatly reduced. It was only a range of 20 to 30 meters. This range was too small. It was very difficult for him to react in time. It was very strange. Huoyu Hao didn't understand the principle behind this. However, Wang Feng knew. In fact, spiritual probing was similar to electromagnetic scanning. It could scan the surroundings and imprint them in one's mind. However, the lime wasn't special. It was a type of magnetic lime. It contained a strong magnetic force that could interfere with Huoyu Hao's spiritual detection. In fact, spiritual power was a special type of electromagnetic wave if it was explained from a more scientific point of view. Northern He Academy might not know about Huoyu Hao's spiritual detection, but they definitely knew that Huoyu Hao was spiritual type. Furthermore, Mo Yang's volcano martial soul was a long-range attack. It also contained the rare magnetic lime that could interfere with spiritual power. This was fatal to Huoyuhao. Wang Feng even suspected that Northern He Academy's Mo Yang didn't know the principle behind the magnetic lime's ability to interfere with spiritual power. They only knew that it had such an effect. This was why they used it against Huoyuhao. At this moment, Huoyuhao was in a dilemma. He could either take the initiative to attack, or remain in his original position. However, if he was in a hurry, he would be attacked by Mo Yang. Huoyuhao chose the former. He still didn't move. In the next moment, 2 soul rings lit up on Mo Yang's body. They were purple and black. Second soul skill, Lava Rain. Third soul skill, Flying Lime. Mo Yang unleashed his soul skill very quickly. He didn't use any soul tools either. Perhaps in his opinion, any soul tool would be of little help to him. The volcano beside Mo Yang erupted once again. It shot out a dazzling pillar of fire. The pillar of fire contained countless flying stones and boiling lava. It flew towards Huoyuhao. The pillar of fire turned into lava in mid-air and rained down like a torrential downpour. The lime that had landed on the ground quickly turned into rocks and mixed with the lava that was falling from the sky. They turned into flying rocks that flew towards Huoyuhao. These 3 soul skills didn't just have the effect of blocking spiritual power. They also had the effect of combining to form an extremely powerful area of effect attack. The pungent smell of sulfur filled the entire plaza. Many of the spectators couldn't help but cover their noses. Huoyuhao didn't have time to dodge these concentrated attacks. Just the pungent smell of sulfur was enough to cause many soul masters to lose part of their fighting strength. There was no need to even think about resisting. This powerful combination of soul skills had clearly been chosen and guided by a great teacher. It was extremely powerful against spiritual-type soul masters. Are these the elites of a first-rate academy? Huoyuhao was shocked. They weren't inferior even to Bei Bei and Tangya. There was also Huang Yan, who was also proficient in spiritual power attacks. At this moment, Huoyuhao felt the vastness of this world. However, he also felt the power of a soul contract master. Jing Jing! Huoyuhao shouted, "Use your second soul skill, Mirror Reflection." The jade shell crystal monster, which had a milky white jade-like luster, suddenly lit up with a ray of light. This ray of light formed on its outer wall, and the 6 corners lit up, connecting to an energy thread. Finally, it formed a slightly concave mirror. End of chapter. Chapter 1164. Stand in front of me. Huoyuhao groaned. At this moment, many flying rocks wrapped in lava were flying towards him. In the next moment, dong dong dong. Sounds of collision rang out one after another. Huoyuhao stared closely. The jade shell crystal monster was a spiritual-type soul beast. It could be said that it was very rare. It was very difficult to find an eye in the purple maple soul beast forest. Huoyuhao had also checked in the past 2 days. This kind of monster didn't exist 10,000 years ago. It had gone extinct. However, after the energy tide, the world changed and mutated again. Not only the jade shell crystal monster, but many other soul beasts were the same. Soul beasts that had gone extinct due to environmental factors and many other factors reappeared on the continent. This spiritual-type soul beast was strong because its body also had an extremely strong defense. This was very powerful. Hot flying rocks covered in lava landed on the jade-like shield and slightly caved in. At the same time, a ray of light emitted from the surface of the shield, and these flying rocks were immediately reflected and exploded. "Hold on," Huoyuhao said in a low voice. "The opponent may not have the chance to use this kind of soul skill a second time. Even if it does, it will need a lot of time to recover." Dong dong dong. Gradually, the surface of the shield formed by the jade shell crystal monster became slightly red and swollen as the flying rocks smashed down. It was obvious that it would also be attacked when it was reflected. After a few minutes, the thumping sounds slowly stopped. At this moment, the entire plaza had been covered by a thick fog due to the concentrated group attack, blocking the vision of many people. They didn't know Huoyuhao's situation. After an unknown period of time, a figure rushed out from the fog at this moment. It was Huoyuhao. After the attacks weakened, Huoyuhao immediately rushed out. At this moment, there were still some lava rocks flying towards Huoyuhao, but they weren't as concentrated as before. They weren't as powerful, and he could dodge them with his spiritual power. He quickly rushed towards Mo Yang in front of him. This kind of group attack was too strong. Even the jade shell crystal monster couldn't withstand it a second time. Otherwise, it would definitely be seriously injured. Fortunately, he still had soul power. Huoyuhao used the ghost shadow perplexing track and rushed towards Mo Yang. This is a soul-bonded beast? Mo Yang stared at the crystal monster that Huoyuhao was using as a shield. This soul-carving beast had used a special soul skill, and through the opponent's dodging, it had perfectly avoided his 3 soul skills. It was truly incredible. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was a miracle that a rank 17 spiritual type soul master was able to walk out unscathed from his attacks despite having his spiritual power suppressed. What a pity, it's only level 17. Mo Yang stood behind the volcano and pushed it forward. In an instant, the volcano collapsed in Huoyuhao's direction, as if it had been driven by his soul power. He was being used by Mo Yang as a tool. Rumble! The volcano collapsed, and its mountain-like body instantly drowned out everything. A cloud of dust rose from the ground. Many of the audience's hearts were in their throats. This last move was probably something that many people did not expect. The collapse of this small volcano, which was 7 to 8 meters tall, was simply a colossus to humans. The force that came crashing down wasn't something that a rank 10 soul master could resist. One would be seriously injured if they got slightly closer, not to mention that there was a lot of magma on the volcano. Once it splashed out, it would be like a goddess scattering flowers. If one wasn't careful, it would be impossible to defend against it. But at this moment, a light that looked like a flywheel flew out from the other side of the volcano. It wasn't Huoyuhao. It was a crystal monster. The hexagonal crystal monster attacked Mo Yang like a boomerang. Mo Yang was stunned. He didn't expect this kid to be so agile. He could even use his soul-carving beast to launch such an attack. Furthermore, this was obviously not a soul skill. What a pity! A rare confident smile appeared on Mo Yang's face. As a tool soul master, his physique was very strong. Looking at the incoming crystal monster, he was confident that he could completely block it. But at this moment, the spinning crystal monster suddenly spun as it approached Mo Yang, and a silvery white object was thrown out. It was thrown to the other side of Mo Yang. It was a silver-patterned silkworm that was less than 20 centimeters long. Hiss! The moment it was thrown out by the crystal monster, the silver-patterned silkworm spat out countless silver threads from its mouth. Mo Yang was shocked. He couldn't react at all. Those silver threads seemed very small, but they instantly covered Mo Yang. The first thing Mo Yang felt was that his mind power seemed to have been restrained. Soul skill, spiritual entanglement. This was the silver-patterned silkworm's second soul skill after 100 years. It was also a soul skill that Huoyuhao had prepared for a long time. His attack, or the crystal monster's attack, were all a feint. The real attack was Mo Yang, who was the most difficult to guard against. Coincidentally, this was the moment when Mo Yang was the most relaxed. In his eyes, he had lost and couldn't hold on for long. Hence, he subconsciously relaxed. As the silver-patterned silkworm's 100-year soul skill, this silver not only had a strong binding effect on soul masters, it also had a great hindrance and entanglement effect on soul masters' spiritual power. Once a soul master's spiritual power was entangled by this silver, it would be difficult for him to even use his soul power. As a spiritual type soul beast, The crystal monster's first soul skill, spiritual amplification, didn't only amplify Huo Yuhao's spiritual soul skills, it also amplified the spiritual soul skills of the silver-patterned silkworm. In the blink of an eye, Mo Yang was trapped like a mummy. Only then did Huo Yuhao slowly climb out from under the volcano. He wasn't very good at foreseeing things, and he clearly didn't dodge Mo Yang's final attack. He also suffered some injuries, but in the end, he relied on his outstanding spiritual power to avoid the volcano's collapse. "You've lost." Huo Yuhao panted heavily. This was his only chance at victory, and he had seized it. If he wanted to defeat this soul elder, he didn't need Brother Skydream's help. He only needed to rely on 200-year soul-bound beasts and his own strength. At this moment, Huo Yuhao was filled with confidence. If he was alone, there was no way he could have defeated a soul exalt in the 30s. There was no way he could have done so. Even so, he wouldn't have been able to defeat him if he'd made a single mistake. "Teacher, I didn't embarrass you." A smile appeared on Huo Yuhao's face. At this moment, the black-clothed referee seemed to have been watching for a long time. Only when the entire crowd erupted into cheers did he come back to his senses. He then solemnly announced, "Shrek Academy's soul-contracted master Huo Yuhao wins." Huo Yuhao immediately burst into laughter. How difficult was it to defeat such a strong opponent? End of chapter. Chapter 1165. He didn't rely on any other methods, just himself and his two soul-bound beasts. Perfect coordination. They were able to unleash such powerful fighting strength. Huo Yuhao felt like he was dreaming. Was this the charm of a soul charmer? Huo Yuhao clenched his fists and looked at the cheering students. They were cheering for him, and also for this mysterious profession. Huo Yuhao looked towards the stage, only to see his teacher smiling at him. Huo Yuhao recalled Little Silver and his crystal monster, then walked up to the stage. Mo Yang coughed a few times, his face pale. He looked at the other party's back, his silence filled with deep shock. On the stage, 3 wins and 1 draw. Ha ha ha, and they're all fighting above their rank. The people from North He Academy were very cunning. They chose to counter the 4 of them, but they were all neutralized. Old Yen, do you see the problem? Qian Duo was rather excited. This matter had made the Academy proud. Furthermore, the other party had even sent out a soul engineer. Soul charmers use the characteristics of soul beasts to make up for their weaknesses. Yen Xiaozhi nodded slightly. Whether it's Wang Dong, He Kaitu, Xiao Xiao, or Huo Yuhao, they all have their own weaknesses due to their martial soul system. Accurately speaking, this isn't their weakness, but a weakness that all soul masters have. However, with the cooperation of soul beasts, they're able to make up for their weaknesses. In a battle, using their weaknesses to defeat them will result in the opposite effect. Impressive. Soul charmers can indeed change the ecological environment of the world of soul masters. Traditional battles between soul masters will be broken, but more complicated and varied battles will appear, accompanied by soul charmers and different soul beasts. It will be like 100 flowers blooming. Yen Xiaozhi stood up with a complicated expression. Let's not talk about what a high-ranked soul charmer is like. Just the fighting strength that these kids have displayed is enough to make countless people look at them in a new light. Actually, they were very clear as to why Huo Yuhao's group of 4 were able to achieve 3 wins and 1 draw. The North Harmony Academy managed to find out the strengths and weaknesses of the 4 of them, as well as their soul beasts. However, the only thing they hadn't expected was the ability that soul masters and soul beasts displayed when they worked together. This was something that couldn't be calculated. What a good soul charmer! On the other side, He Wantian was stunned for a long time before he stood up and sighed. The results of the 4 academies were not optimistic. It was indeed embarrassing. However, as the principal of a first-rate academy, he was still able to accept this. The rest of the people looked ashamed and silent. "Teacher, although these 4 people defeated us, it doesn't prove anything. Fei Long was unconvinced. They're only low-level soul charmers. If they're high-level soul charmers, they might not be able to defeat us soul masters. It's important to know that soul engineers will be inferior to soul masters after rank 70. Furthermore, soul beasts grew too slowly. By the time they reached rank 70 or 80, it would be good if these soul beasts were at least 1,000 years old. When that happens, these soul beasts will be of little help to them. Instead, they'll think that they're too reliant on soul beasts and their fighting strength is weak. Based on my guess, the soul renderer profession is only slightly more powerful in the early stages. The growth curve in the middle and later stages will decline. Huantian laughed a few times. What you said might make some sense, but it shouldn't be that simple. From the perspective of a normal soul master, Fei Long's words weren't completely wrong. Their teacher seems to have returned. Huang Yen pointed to another high platform and said, "Next, it should be Purple Star College's turn." The few of them shifted their gazes to the high platform, only to see a back that was as handsome as a god, instantly attracting their attention. He's the founder of the soul renderer profession? Mo Yang looked at them with rapt attention. These 4 people are his disciples. According to the information we received, it seems that he was able to train such powerful students in less than 10 days. His name seems to be Wang Feng, the same as Ancestor Wang Feng. Ancestor Wang Feng is also the belief of Purple Star College. After Huo Yuhao returned to the high platform, he wiped the dust off his face and looked a little excited. This kind of victory was a huge improvement for him. Very good. Wang Feng smiled. As the main character of the second novel, Huo Yuhao had changed a lot because of the era. However, his brain was still sharp. He wasn't too far off from the mistress of the past. Of course, because of his age, Huo Yuhao was much younger than when he had disappeared. "Teacher, I don't quite understand. The dust that his volcano spewed out affected my spiritual power." Huo Yuhao scratched his head and couldn't help but ask, ignoring the dirt on his face. "No wonder you were in such a sorry state when you dodged. I knew that you had spiritual power detection. Even if you were attacked so intensely, as long as you entered the range of your spiritual power detection, you wouldn't have been beaten to the point of running away like a rat." No wonder. Wang Dong suddenly understood. "So your spiritual power was affected. I was clearly calm, okay? How was I running away like a rat?" Huo Yuhao seriously retorted to Wang Dong's inaccurate words. "Tch, look at the limestone on your body. Look at the holes that were burned by the lava, and the smell of sulfur all over your body. You're really calm." Wang Dong sneered. "Enough." Wang Feng saw that the 2 of them were about to quarrel again, so he immediately stopped them. These 2 fellows really didn't get tired of quarreling. They really didn't get tired of quarreling. They could even quarrel over such a small matter. Wang Feng gave them a simple explanation of the dust. If he forced them to talk about science, they definitely wouldn't move. For example, they probably wouldn't understand electromagnetic wave. The magnetic force formed a magnetic field that affected spiritual power. That dust contains a special absorption force. When you use your spiritual power detection, your spiritual power will be disturbed by this force. This will greatly reduce the strength of your soul skills and affect your spiritual power detection. Wang Feng explained, "Do you know about magnets?" The few of them shook their heads. Only He Kaitu was stunned. "Teacher, you should be talking about magnets, right? The Sun-Moon Empire produces these ores in abundance. I've heard that some soul tools also use magnet. Magnets contain a special magnetic force that can attract many metals." Wang Feng nodded. "That dust contains a similar force. Once there's enough of it, this magnetic force will form a magnetic field. In this magnetic field, our spiritual power will be greatly weakened, and it'll be very difficult to detect it. For example, many ancient regions on the continent, places that are difficult to detect with spiritual power, actually have similar magnetic field. Of course, there were some forces that didn't belong to the rules, such as the isolation of divine power. However, there was still a huge difference between this and a magnetic field. The Sun-Moon Empire focused on the development of soul tool technology, so they probably had a deeper understanding of this. End of chapter. Chapter 1166. If you encounter a martial soul with magnetic force in the future, you have to be careful. They may be the natural nemesis of your spiritual type martial soul and can greatly affect your spiritual power. Wang Feng finally said. Huoyu Hao nodded. Teacher Wang's explanation is really fresh. This is the first time I've heard of magnetic force. At this moment, a faint laughter sounded from afar. It was two groups of people walking towards them. The one who spoke was Purple Star College's Dean Chen, followed by Beha Academy's He Wantian. Is that so? Then you're a little ignorant. Wang Feng looked at the two groups of people and smiled. The competition is over. I think this soul realtor should have broadened your horizons, right? Do the two of you have anything else? Ha ha, of course. He Wantian sized up Wang Feng from a close distance. To be able to teach these students, Teacher Wang is really extraordinary. With his appearance and temperament, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he's number one in the world. That's right, I think so too. Wang Feng nodded. He Wantian. He coughed twice, saying that your fat actually kicked you. This mysterious teacher Wang isn't modest at all. The few students behind were also stunned. They thought that the other party would be a serious, old-fashioned, and cold teacher Wang. In addition, his appearance and temperament were indeed a little exaggerated. But they didn't expect that to be the case. To be able to create a soul realtor, Teacher Wang should have this confidence. Dean Chen smiled. Today, I've been inquiring about Teacher Wang's image among the Shrek students and was blown to the sky by those students. I didn't think much of it at first, but now that I've seen it, it's really worthy of the reputation. Alright, I'm handsome, I don't need you to brag here. Wang Feng waved his hand. With your level of bragging, you can't even describe 1/10 of my appearance. I don't feel good at all, I even feel offended. So, if you have anything to say, just say it. Hearing this, the two's faces stiffened. Huoyu Hao and the others burst out laughing. Look, this is a teacher. He's so awesome. He never flatters, and just a few words can make these deans speechless. He never walks the normal path. What are you so proud of? At this moment, Fei Long, who was behind He Wantian, stood out and said indifferently, Your 4 students can't prove anything. At most, they can only represent the standard of a low-level spirit master, slightly stronger than us spirit masters. However, intermediate, advanced, and top-tier titled Douluo didn't prove anything. Time will test all of this. Right now, we're only temporarily acknowledging the soul renderer. There are countless experts in the world. It's still too early for a soul contractor to step onto the stage. Hearing this, Wang Feng looked at Fei Long with interest. Young man, although your words are a bit harsh, you're right. Are you trying to use these words to provoke me to spar with your teacher? No problem, I've been hit. Come on, let's cut the crap. Only the teachers from your 2 academies who are capable can participate. Today, I'll let you know what it means to be a soul renderer in the middle and advanced stages. After that, Wang Feng waved his hand. With that, Wang Feng walked off the stage. He was thinking that Kirin Lord Bingmu had just been born and was still not used to his body. It was a good opportunity to beat up these arrogant soul masters and break their spirit. It would also allow Kirin Lord Bingmu to regain some of his senses. When Wang Feng walked off the stage, He Wantian and Dean Chen were still in a daze. He did it so easily? They had indeed planned to do so. Their main goal was to find out more about this mysterious teacher Wang. They originally thought that he would be a low-profile person. Who knew that every step he took would be so unpredictable? Interesting. Dean Chen squinted his eyes. Jake, go and spar with this soul contractor teacher Wang. Find out where he's from. This is the Shrek Academy. Don't tell me there's a ghost here. No problem. Jake smiled. He was a dark-skinned Charmanite from the Sun Moon Empire. When he smiled, he revealed a row of white teeth. He looked abnormally strong. However, from the color of his skin, the current Douluo continent could be divided into many different races. Just the people by the sea had skin that leaned towards blue. From dark blue, light blue, dark blue, green blue, and so on, there were many different races. Only dark-skinned people like him were the easiest to recognize. Teacher is going on stage too. Xiao Xiao was a little excited. I love watching teacher fight. He's so handsome. Love-struck fool. Wang Dong raised his head. You were crying just now, but you're fine now. So what if I'm love-struck? Xiao Xiao made a face. Actually, I also like watching teacher fight. Huoyu Hao chuckled. Xiao Xiao, I'm on your side. He Kaitu pinched his chin. It'd be great if teacher could use soul tools too. He'd be even more handsome. However, with teacher's strength, soul tools won't have much of an effect on him. Speaking of which, I've never seen teacher's soul-bonded beast before. It's a black and white soul-bonded beast. The four of them seemed to have thought of something. They couldn't help but look excitedly below the stage. These students seemed to be quite confident in their teacher Wang. Fei Long laughed softly. Purple Star College is stronger than our Bei He. Most of their teachers are soul emperors. That Jiku is even a soul sage. Don't they understand that a battle between high-level soul masters can't be changed by a few 100 or 1,000-year soul beasts? That's not necessarily true. Dean Chen seemed to have heard Fei Long's muttering. Your information isn't accurate. This teacher Wang had defeated Zhang Lishuan 4 months ago. Do you know who Zhang Lishuan is? He participated in 2 consecutive Continental Soul Master Soul dueling tournaments and made it to the finals of the youth division. Now that she's already a soul sage, she'll have to participate in the high-level division if she participates again. Many of our teachers aren't her match. After he finished speaking, Dean Chen stared at the figure in the soul dueling arena. There's such a thing? He Wantian frowned. They had only heard that this teacher Wang was the founder of soul contracting. He was very handsome, extremely handsome. Other than that, there wasn't much else. Many students only remembered this. Ha ha ha! Dean Chen laughed. His smile was indescribable. At the same time, it seems like he'll really go on stage. This teacher Wang really doesn't walk the normal path. Qian Duoduo's gaze landed on the black-clothed figure who had walked from the stage to the soul dueling arena. Look at his aura. He came with special effects. The entire arena quietened down. We titled Douluo don't have this ability. I'm envious, I'm envious. Qian Duoduo said sincerely. End of chapter. Chapter 1167. He's already so old. What's there to be envious of? Yan Xiaozhi shook his head and said, He's just a shell. Old Yan, you're already so old. Why do you sound so jealous? Qian Duoduo used his elbow to poke Yan Xiaozhi. What a joke. Why would I be jealous of a young man? Yan Xiaozhi snorted. Hey, you don't say. I have a feeling that this Wang Feng might really be someone who has lived for a long time. Qian Duoduo crossed his arms and said, when he came to the academy, he said that the 9-1 founder elder was his disciple. Don't forget, right? Who has the courage and guts to say something like that in this day and age? Most people don't even dare to brag like that. Do you believe that I'll bet a gold soul coin on him? Even if he's in the Central Martial Soul Palace, he still dares to say that? Yan Xiaozhi was speechless. However, his abilities are still debatable. Everyone's gazes shifted from the sky to the arena. Wang Feng was wearing a black robe. He had changed his outfit, but he was still as handsome as ever. The sky was a little cloudy just now, but the sun immediately shone brightly. Screams could be heard from the students around the spectators' stand. "TSK, TSK, I feel like I have the potential to be a conman." Wang Feng swept his gaze across the crowd and saw the crazed infatuation in the students' eyes. "They're all obsessed with appearances." Wang Feng shook his head and squinted as he looked at the black-clothed referee. This referee wasn't a simple person. He was a titled Douluo, and he was the referee here. He was probably one of the higher-ups in the Martial Soul Inspection Department. He had disguised himself as a referee and was watching the show from a close distance. Wang Feng had already figured out what had happened when he returned. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sat in the spectators' stand to watch the competition. The Martial Soul Inspection Department had been here for so long because they wanted to investigate the situation of soul charters. There were so many people today, and the Martial Soul Inspection Department didn't have the habit of wearing plain clothes. However, there wasn't a single person from the Martial Soul Inspection Department in the spectators' stand. That meant that there were only people in the arena. At this moment, the dark-skinned Ji Ku entered the arena. In Wang Feng's eyes, he looked like a black person from his previous life. His appearance was a combination of Eastern and Western people. He was from the Sun Moon Empire. Ji Ku, a level 73 battle soul saint. "Martial soul, shadow of the black soul," Ji Ku said with a smile. His smile was still a little silly. "This place is a little small, and we can't use our full strength. Let's stop here." Ji Ku looked at Wang Feng and nodded. "Please enlighten me, Sir Soul Contractor. Shadow of the Black Soul?" Wang Feng thought for a long time but still couldn't figure out what kind of martial spirit it was. It could only be said that there were simply too many unique martial souls that had appeared over the years. 7 soul rings rose from Jake's body. 3 purples and 4 black. The last one should be an 80,000-year soul ring that was close to a 90,000-year soul ring. It was slightly scarlet. His strength was extraordinary. In terms of aura, Jake was much stronger than Zhang Lishuan. It was mainly because of their different experiences. Jake was from the Sun Moon Empire, and his aura was very stable. One look and one could tell that he was a veteran who had experienced many big things. Wang Feng had never heard of the Shadow of the Black Soul before. Almost none of the people present had heard of it before. However, the 7 soul rings were clearly visible. Wang Feng didn't waste any time. He looked up at the sky and snorted. "Come down." Many spectators followed Wang Feng's gaze and looked up at the sky. A black figure that was like a black gem flickered in the sky like a star. Following this, it suddenly descended from the sky. Boom! The huge figure crashed onto the ground and kicked up a huge cloud of dust. A gust of cold air emanated from the figure and spread in all directions. Many of the spectators in the stands inexplicably shivered from the cold. Opposite him, Jake frowned slightly. A frightening aura could be felt from the cloud of dust. An aura of darkness and an aura of coldness combined. Just this aura alone gave off a frightening and sinister feeling. After a few seconds, the dust slowly dissipated. Lin Lord Bing Mu's majestic black and white body was just floating on the ground. The wings on his back were very mechanical, and there were mysterious black and white patterns on them. His body was one with distinct edges and corners. The aura of extreme coldness and darkness combined with his ancient and mysterious body made him look very cool. An ultimate ice-type soul beast? Jake's expression changed. There's also the aura of an evil soul beast? But a soul contractor can't even tame an evil soul beast. No, is this dark-type soul beast? It was different from Long Xie. Even a soul master could recognize Long Xie's body. It was a crag dragon. Although it was very different. However, no one could recognize Lin Lord Bing Mu. Lin Lord Bing Mu was born in an egg of an evil soul beast. The body that was born was his body. It wasn't any other soul beast. Even in the extreme north, very few soul beasts had seen Lin Lord Bingmu, let alone these people. You'll be qualified to fight me if you defeat Lin Lord Bingmu, Wang Feng said without any trace of politeness. Jake's expression darkened. The first thing that came to his mind wasn't that his opponent was mocking him. Instead, he thought that this soul beast must be very strong. Otherwise, his opponent wouldn't be so arrogant. Let the match begin, the black-clothed referee said calmly. His gaze was fixed on Lin Lord Bingmu. The moment he said that, Lin Lord Bingmu clenched his fists. Ice patterns flashed on his body, and the power of absolute ice spread out from his body. Layers of frost started to form on the ground at a visible speed. The power of absolute ice that surpassed the extreme, even if it was just a trace of it, it had great power. Qi Lin Lord Isimu gently lifted his foot and stomped on the ground. Countless icicles suddenly appeared on the icy ground and surrounded Jake. It was very powerful. It wasn't something that a low-tier soul master could create. Lin Lord Bingmu had lived for countless years. Although he only had a cultivation of less than 10,000 years, he was very familiar with the power of absolute ice. However, his familiarity with the use of the power of absolute ice, as well as his battle experience, allowed him to unleash his combat power to the extreme. Even Long Xie couldn't compare to him. He could unleash a powerful attack just by lifting his leg. That powerful ice attribute energy shocked everyone present. The unbreakable icicles rose from the ground. Jake leapt up. His fifth soul ring shone, and a pair of black wings appeared on his back. Jake turned his gaze to Wang Feng. Fourth soul skill, Black Nightmare Shadowbind. Jake, who was flying in midair, dodged the attack on the ground. However, the extreme cold also caused him a great deal of trouble. Jake didn't hesitate. He swung his hands at Lin Lord Bingmu. It was as if he was throwing out a shadow. However, it didn't wrap around Lin Lord Bingmu. Instead, it wrapped around Lin Lord Bingmu's shadow. End of chapter. Chapter 1168. Lin Lord Bingmu glanced at his own shadow. Fifth soul skill, Power Assimilation. Jiku shouted coldly. After he finished speaking, a black soul ring rose from Jiku's body. Wang Feng still couldn't see what his soulless soul was. However, it was an icy blue weapon. It circled around Jiku's body and engulfed him. Following this, his expression changed, and his body started to be covered with frost. Even the wings formed by the black fog behind him turned icy blue. Jiku landed and grabbed an icicle. As he stomped on it, the icicles around him were instantly shattered. The icicles formed by the power of absolute ice couldn't be shattered so easily. Without an elemental strength of the same level or a soul power that far exceeded Lin Lord Bingmu's abilities, it couldn't be shattered. This martial soul is interesting. Wang Feng thought for a moment. It can copy the enemy's elemental attributes. It can be immune to the enemy's special elemental attack. However, Lin Lord Bingmu isn't so simple. His fourth soul skill was a dark-type soul skill. It could bind the opponent's shadow and imitate their elemental form. Could reach this level. Theoretically, Jiku's soulless soul was undefeatable. It was very difficult for others to defeat him. At most, it would be a draw. This was very exaggerated. Furthermore, it was so simple. Jiku wasn't afraid of this ultimate ice-type soul skill. He immediately rushed towards Lin Lord Bingmu. However, Lin Lord Bingmu was still standing in his original position. He didn't move. Sixth soul skill, Black Soul Shadow Assault. Instantly, Jiku's entire body seemed to have turned into a ball of black fog. He disappeared too. Countless black fog engulfed Lin Lord Bingmu. Ding ding ding. A series of crisp sounds could be heard from Lin Lord Bingmu's body. It was the sound of his steel-like skin being attacked. You can't do it. Lin Lord Bingmu suddenly stretched out his hand. His wings shook and he clenched his hands into fists. He punched towards a spot in the black fog. Boom! Suddenly, a human figure flew out as if he was hit by a cannonball. He landed far away and smashed into a wall. He was sent flying over 100 meters away by Lin Lord Bingmu's punch. Lin Lord Bingmu condensed a thick ball of absolute ice in his palm. His body was also covered by a thick layer of armor. It could be said to be indestructible. For a moment there was incomparable silence. This soul beast was only around 6,000 years old, but it could easily beat a soul sage to such a state with a single punch. On the contrary, the attacks of soul sages didn't seem to hurt it at all. It doesn't seem to have any weaknesses? However, Jake had not completely lost his ability to fight, and there was still a smile on his face. 7th Soul Skill. Black Soul Shadow True Body, Endless Transformations. In an instant Jake disappeared. His body began to change. His body turned incorporeal, and in the process, he took on the appearance of Lin Lord Bingmu. The ability of the martial soul true body is to completely duplicate the enemy, but the prerequisite is that it has to come into contact with the enemy. Wang Feng smiled. It's a very powerful martial soul. It was equivalent to being in an invincible position. After all, for an enemy, the most difficult thing to defeat is oneself. However, the difference was still very obvious. The icy Qilin Lord that Jake had transformed into was illusory. It was not solid. Obviously, his skills were not up to par yet. However, the strength of this martial soul made it so that if the enemy was strong, it would be strong. If the enemy was weak, it would not be weak either. Unfortunately, I met Lin Lord Bingmu. Duplicating its ability is equivalent to courting death. Wang Feng sneered and said, Ice Qilin, give it a fatal blow. Don't waste time. But I still want to play. Ice Qilin suddenly said. Wang Feng. Haha, seems like old Ice likes the thrill of torturing noobs. Boss, I told you, no one doesn't like torturing noobs, right? Long Xie laughed and said in the soul domain. Cultivation was too boring. He had seen too many strong enemies, but torturing noobs could increase his sense of accomplishment and joy. Wang Feng shook his head. Ice Qilin finally decided not to play. At this moment, the icy Qilin Lord Bingmu that Jake had transformed into was emitting the power of absolute ice, which was crazily leaking in all directions. Jake felt that this did not seem to be an extreme ice element, because it was not so exaggerated. His soul power consumption was too exaggerated. This meant that the quality of this power had reached a very high level. But even so, I'm in an invincible position. It is only a 6,000-year soul beast. How can it compare to my soul power? Jake thought, as long as I drag it out, it will definitely lose. His martial soul was special, causing many soul masters to be unable to do anything to him. Either it was a draw, or the person whose soul power was depleted first would lose. At the same level, even Soul Douluo could not do anything to him. He was one of those special soul masters who could fight on par with many soul masters. But, unfortunately, he met Lin Lord Bingmu. Duplicating my absolute ice power? Lin Lord Bingmu felt that this human was very interesting. Even if he duplicated it, he should not know that. All of the absolute ice power was controlled by him, right? Logically speaking, Lin Lord Bingmu knew that this human had no chance of winning when he duplicated its attribute. But he did not expect the other party to be himself? Lin Lord Bingmu was worried that he would not have a chance to transfer his absolute ice power to him. But he did not expect him to duplicate it. Absolute Ice Seal. Looking at Jake, Lin Lord Bingmu grabbed the air in front of him. In an instant, all of the absolute ice aura on his body seemed to have a consciousness and quickly wrapped around Jake. The soul power in his body seemed to have changed its flow and did not listen to his orders at all, causing the absolute ice aura on his body to become denser and denser, but it immediately wrapped around his body. Following that, as his soul power was rapidly depleted, the absolute ice aura that should be controlled by him was completely different. In just a moment, Jake was frozen into an ice sculpture. Too weak. Lin Lord Bingmu shook his head. Suddenly, the entire arena quietened down. On the high platform, Dean Chern had a serious expression. This was the first time Jake had failed. After duplicating the other party's ability, he was instantly suppressed by the other party. This could only mean one thing. This 6,000-year soul beast was so strong that it was difficult to duplicate it. In the soul dueling arena, the black-clothed referee announced Wang Feng's victory. But Wang Feng did not seem to have left. Instead, he was still waiting. Seeing this, Dean Chern and He Wantian's expression darkened. Elder Chen, this person from your academy is not very good. He Wantian sighed. This soul-carving beast is definitely not an ordinary beast. Even a soul sage can't do anything to it, unless we send out a rank 80 soul Douluo. But if we do that, our two academies will lose face. But if we don't make a move, it will also be embarrassing. After all, the other party is only relying on his soul-carving beast. He hasn't made a move himself. It's a dilemma. He Wantian shook his head. He seems to be only rank 20. Could it be because of this? Is it because as long as we defeat his soul-carving beast, he will win without a fight? A few students at the side analyzed. Not necessarily. Dean Chen pondered for a moment and looked at a man about 30 years old with a lazy face. But it makes sense. Since that's the case, Teacher Xiang He, you can go up and try. Me? The man yawned. Then I'll go and try. With that, he walked down. When he walked down the steps of the high platform, he slipped and almost fell. Purple Star College won't have a problem, right? Huoyu Hao and the others couldn't help but laugh. Letting such a middle-aged teacher go up, will he be able to make a move? P.S. 7 chapters. This chapter ends. Chapter 1169. In the arena, Wang Feng yawned a few times. After waiting for a while, he saw a lazy middle-aged man walking down. He didn't care about his appearance, and his footsteps were light. He seemed a little weak. However, Wang Feng frowned immediately. But logically speaking, looking at his appearance, he seemed weak. Wasn't this the inner appearance of a hidden expert? Wu Xianghe, rank 51 Tool Soul Master. Martial Soul. Heavenly Void Sword. This middle-aged man had 2 huge dark circles under his eyes as he spoke with a smile. Oh! Wang Feng was surprised. He thought that they would send a soul Douluo to take a look. However, he didn't expect them to send a rank 51 Soul King. Heavenly Void Sword. Among sword-type martial souls, the sword Douluo's 7 kills sword should be the best. 10,000 years had passed, and there should be a huge difference. Be careful. Wu Xianghe glanced at Qilin Lord Bingmu, and his soul rings appeared. When his soul rings lit up, Wang Feng roughly knew why his opponent had chosen him to come down. 4 black and 1 red. At least 10,000-year soul rings, and the 5th was a 100,000-year soul ring. Logically speaking, there were many more 100,000-year soul beasts than 10,000 years ago, and many powerful soul beasts had died in the 5 soul beast wars. However, 100,000-year soul beasts were still rare, and only a few had soul rings. Only titled Douluo had soul rings. A soul emperor with a 100,000-year soul ring, unless they were cheating like Wang Feng. However, after taking a closer look, Wang Feng roughly understood. This 100,000-year soul ring seemed to have been dyed. It looked red, but it was black inside. It's scattered but not condensed, which means that it's not a pure 100,000-year soul ring. The undulations aren't obvious, and the other soul rings are scattered but not condensed. Strange. Wang Feng was a little surprised as he looked at this man. If it was really 100,000-year soul ring, this Wu Xianghe was extraordinarily strong. Normally, only titled Douluo could withstand the strength of 100,000-year soul ring. Although the strength of soul masters had increased due to the energy tide. However, it was still a fantasy for a soul emperor to absorb 100,000-year soul ring. Is this heavenly void sword Wu Xianghe? On the high platform, Huantian looked at the middle-aged man in astonishment. I heard that this heavenly void sword martial soul was born 4,000 years ago. Soul masters who possess this martial soul will have their soul rings mutate as the soul master grows stronger. The older they are, the more this happens. The price was that their lifespan was at least twice that of ordinary people. 1,000 years ago, a soul master with the heavenly oasis sword martial spirit created a special cultivation technique, the heavenly oasis spirit returning technique. I've heard that after cultivating this technique, the lifespan of a heavenly oasis sword soul master will no longer decrease, but every once in a while, the heavenly oasis sword soul master will enter a special divine oasis state. Their age and appearance will change in reverse. Huantian clicked his tongue in wonder. Although there's this flaw, the heavenly void sword's soul masters are no longer short-lived. They only have 40 to 50 years to live. It would only weaken and change after a certain period of time, and even its soul rings would turn white. His combat power will be greatly reduced. This kind of rare and special martial soul was actually quite common in the current Douluo continent, but most of them were unable to become famous due to various flaws. Occasionally, there would be some stunning genius who would create all kinds of cultivation techniques to patch up some flaws, but they were unable to truly achieve perfection. It's that mystical? The few students from Beha Academy were extremely astonished. It was obvious that they had never heard of this kind of special martial soul. Martial souls that came with their own cultivation techniques were still very rare on the continent. Furthermore, most of them were created by large clans and large sects with the strength to research them. Other than that, they were very rare. After all, most cultivation techniques were only suitable for special martial souls. Teacher Xiang, he is already 60 years old this year. Dean Chen stroked his white beard. He looks young because he is currently in this divine oasis state. He has entered a special stage where he has returned to his youth. In this stage, his strength will increase greatly. Because of the cultivation technique he cultivates, his soul ring will appear in a state similar to 100,000-year scarlet soul ring, and he will obtain a new soul skill. Therefore, you see him as only 30 or 40 years old, but in reality, this is his appearance from several decades ago. In this state, his strength will be close to that of a soul Douluo. His few words caused Huo Hao and the others to be incomparably astonished. There's such a mystical martial soul and cultivation technique? Huo Hao exclaimed. The world is truly vast, and nothing is too strange. This should be a martial soul that has been passed down very rarely. Because of the uniqueness of martial souls, they are unable to nurture their descendants on a large scale like other sections. This is because martial souls are unstable. Wang Dong guessed. I heard my father say that some martial souls might not completely inherit their parents' martial souls, and might only be born after a few generations. Because of this, many martial souls will disappear in a short period of time, making it difficult for them to be spread widely. In that case, this Wu Xianghe is comparable to a soul Douluo. Xiao Xiao frowned. I feel that this Purple Star College is very crafty. They didn't send out a soul Douluo, and only sent out a soul emperor. This way, even if they lose, they still have some face left. It's naturally better if they win. But in reality, this person's strength isn't much different from a soul Douluo's. It was indeed crafty. It was an academy, and everyone wanted face. If it was the Shrek Academy, it would be the same. Wang Feng was able to see through it. Although he didn't know Wu Xianghe's exact situation, He could guess that it might be because of his cultivation technique. Let's test his strength. Wang Feng said to the Ice Qilin. If there's really a soul master who cultivates a cultivation technique, I'd like to meet him. This was because Wang Feng had heard from Tangya and the others that in the current Douluo continent, there were a few sects and families that had researched special cultivation technique. Other than the mysterious heaven technique, this was the first time he had seen a soul master who cultivated another cultivation technique. Wang Fengxin was very curious. Lord Bingmu nodded slightly. His body trembled, and the aura of absolute ice spread in all directions. Countless icicles were like icy blades that spun in mid-air and cut through the void. Faced with such a situation, Wu Xianghe grinned. He waved his hand, and a powerful formless sword appeared in all directions. It stirred up boundless waves that swept away all the icicles that were flying towards him at high speed. 3 soul rings flickered on his body, and sword-shaped air currents revolved around Wu Xianghe. Within a few meters of him, only the sword-shaped air currents could be seen. Although they couldn't cut through the icicles formed by the power of absolute ice, they could still repel them. I can't see the sword, Wang Feng was a little astonished. Wu Xianghe had made a move, but he couldn't even see his martial soul. This meant it's the formless sword? Wang Feng was stunned. This Sky Ruin's sword martial soul is the formless sword? End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.